Tara, because Tara is chairing our education committee and is doing a masterful job with it. And she's gonna introduce kind of the day, a little bit more what we're doing, as well as our first speaker here.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to kick off our safety day with Ms. Deb Bailey. She is from the Bureau of Workman's Comp over in North Canton. So she works very closely with, well, I met Mike and I went to the fire department and the chief recommended us to talk to Deb. So she has a lot of close ties in our community. So I had full confidence we're gonna really learn a lot through her. Oh,
volunteered. You're gonna be scribe.
oh, all right.
So I'll put her to work. So, okay, so one of the things, again, and I'm just gonna talk about, you guys said every once in a while you hear something. I had our planning book. And again, I'm not the comp person that does your workers' comp. I'm a safety consultant. I even hate to admit this, but I have 50 years of experience between industry and currently with the Bureau. I've been at the Bureau 19 years now. So I've been in a lot of industries to look at safety. And again, for most folks, the safety aspect of it is, we don't get hurt at work, okay? Tara and Mike came to us and said, we're genuinely concerned. And I knew that there was an issue there. We'd heard about it, but it wasn't necessarily a group that we would normally reach out to. Okay, there's a lot of stuff on the Realtors Association about how to keep yourself safe. Quick show of hands. How many of you have thought about or have some kind of plan in your brain? If something goes wrong, what are you gonna do? Show of hands. Okay, so we're gonna talk about some scenarios today, some items, and I want you to think in your head, do you have a plan? Do you have something that can help protect you? And a lot of this is hazard recognition and understanding, like really, a lot of it's really situational awarenesses. We have to be, because you guys are not in an environment where you're consistently in the same location, right? So it can be very location sensitive. It could be, just customers or people that are clients that are coming to look. It could be neighbors of clients. It could be driving to that facility could be an issue. So there's all kinds of situations that you guys need to be prepared for, not just at the location itself. So this list actually is a list of claims, and I'm just gonna read some things on overexertion involving outside sources. Overexertion, everybody know what that means from a claim court?
You overworked yourself.
Overworked yourself, right? You're reaching something in the body. It's usually a soft tissue injury. But I will tell you, the soft tissue injuries are very expensive. The average claim on that was $1,000. Again, that goes back to, you have insurance with the Bureau. That's what they're there for. We are an insurance agency. So our portion of it is the risk. We don't want, the best claim you guys can have is the one that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I always challenge everybody to put us out of business. That isn't gonna happen, I'm just saying, but you can look at that from that perspective, okay? Struck by objects. Struck against a piece of equipment, so they hit something. Other exertions or bodily reactions, roadway incidents involving motor vehicles. Still, yeah. How many of you on the way here this morning, just asking, had any kind of encounter where you went, are you kidding me? Gosh, every single day, isn't it? If I have a day where there's none, I'm like, okay, something's wrong. Something's wrong because it didn't happen today. Absolutely, and people are so much more aggressive, and again, we all realize that, we all accept it. How we react to that, Tara and I were just talking about this before you guys all came in. How many of you heard about the shooting up at the Taco Bell and stuff? I mean, honestly, I said, who does that? Make it think. The girl cut the guy off, right? He got mad, got out, shot and killed her, and then killed himself. I mean, she's like, I'm serious.
How do you hear about that?
It's 5 minutes from my house.
It happened like a month ago, right?
About a month ago now. Yeah. Yeah. So don't cut anybody off in Taco Bell parking lot. Don't cut anybody off. Again, falls to lower levels. Okay, so our number one in all of the workers' comp claims is always motor vehicle accidents. Most of those we have no control over because people are driving. Now, we can tell you to take driver safety. We can tell you, we're gonna talk a little bit about driver awareness and that stuff. But it's really under the control of the local law enforcement when something like a motor vehicle accident happens and they investigate that aspect of it. Our number one injuries, can anybody guess what it might be? No, no guess.
Machine operation, something.
Slip and fall.
Slip, trip and falls.
Oh, sure.
When are we?
Sadly.
Linda's got the bingo card.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a lot of life.
Me too, I'm with you. I'm like, I'm an expert at falling, I can fall upstairs very well. I
Where's your
do very
seatbelt,
well.
Linda? Put that-
So-
My job's
Absolutely. So there's three kinds of falls when we talk about slip, trips and falls. There's falls from the same level, falls to a lower level, and then falls from something to a lower level. So there's three categories of types of falls we can be against, and that's one that we're gonna talk about because something as simple as somebody tripping, I hate to say it, but we've had fatalities because of that. And it is our number one, and it still remains as our number one. Now immediately people go to, oh, well, that's the construction worker, no, it's not. It's schools, it's offices, it's nursing, it whole gamut, everything. So some of the other ones are non-road incidents involving motor vehicle accidents, pedestrian vehicular incidents, overexertions of body injury by person. Another person, right? I mean, that's always an issue. Repetitious motions, multiple types of overexertions and transportation incidents, jumps to lower level. Animal and insect related items. So, I mean, stung by bee, hornet, snake, raccoon, we see a lot of those. I mean, people come across something and they end up, getting hurt or getting bit. So what Tara and Mike wanted to know is like, how can we, those two, protect themselves when they're out there? So what I want to do today is talk about, we kind of brainstormed a whole list of things. I thought it was pretty inclusive.
Yes.
Of what we can do, and we're gonna do a little show and tell, but what we wanna do is for you guys to think about. How do you, if you don't already have one, how can I create a go bag? And what needs to be in it, okay? And we're gonna address each one of these topics. And we're gonna talk about what that looks like, so that's why Tara's up here, this is my go bag, and okay. I'm not an artist, I'm just saying, it says go bag, and we're gonna fill it up, and Tara's gonna put all those things in it that we talk about. But I also want you guys to think about, what can you add? What are the things that we didn't think about? Cause there's probably a lot of things that we didn't think about, and I want you to think about it. This isn't stuff that you have to go out and buy, most of it you're gonna have at home. Okay, as a matter of fact, everything I brought, I already had in my state car, because I guess in a way, when we go out, we never know what we're walking into. Like, much like you guys, right? I can tell you, I've been into very hostile environments where you're from the government and we don't want you here. I mean, but we've been, they've scheduled an appointment, you're kind of watching your back as you're walking through, because you don't know what's gonna happen. So I get a lot about what you guys are. The difference is, for the most part, you're one-on-one with a person. We're not necessarily one-on-one. One of the very first things that I tell people is, wherever I go, the first thing I look for are where are the exits. How do I get out of Dodge? That's the very first thing I'm looking for. I need to know my escape route. And again, and I do that in my personal life. I do that if we go somewhere. I heard some people talking about camping. I'm a big avid camper. I just came back from Charles Mill Lake for a week.
Nice.
It's like, sorry, I'm like, we travel all over the country though. We've been coast to coast, so. And it is, every location is totally different, and I have to assess that area. I remember coming back from Montana and we were out camping on the way back, and the sign said, watch for rattlesnakes on concrete at night by the bathroom. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I won't be taking the dogs over there. He's like, oh no, not happening. Again, but they go, I mean, snakes go up to wherever the warmth is, and that's where they stay, because they're cold-blooded animals. So, understanding why they do that, you stay away from all those things that are warm and they won't bother you. So, let's talk a little bit about personal security. How many of you, we were talking about Taekwondo, which can be kind of a protection factor. How many of you have had some kind of self-defense? Or some de-escalation training? If you haven't, we actually have a class that's free, you can sign up for. As long as you have a policy number, you can use KW's policy number, and you can register for it, and I will tell you, the de-escalation class is hands-on. You said you do have to wear your right shoes that day, I'll tell you. But I will tell you something, it was a phenomenal class, absolutely phenomenal. And it's very, how do you handle when somebody's coming at you? Now, there's another turn to that, and there was a lady from, we just had our safety council. That it was a de-escalation thing, and immediately, what's the de-escalation? What do you think of? That's like defensive, right? We're not thinking about offensive, we're thinking about defensive, how are we protecting ourselves? She actually talks about a different approach, and it's more on an offensive approach. And it's basically the only thing, and I love this, the only thing that's in your control is how you react to that situation. Okay, is panic and fear the best way to react? No, but that's human nature, right? Fight or flight, that's built into our brain. The one thing that we were talking about is that the things that you haven't practiced or even just thought about. I mean, have you ever been in a situation where you're thinking, what if this happened? Okay, right now, we're all in the drive-thru at Taco Bell. Same. We're all in the drive-thru at Taco Bell, our dog's sitting beside us and he's getting antsy, so we don't wanna wait, so we cut the guy off. Now, we don't know what's gonna happen, right? Do any of you think about what would you do?
Not cut the guy off.
Not cut the guy off, right? No.
In that
That's-
case, though, like after it was already done, it was not much she could have did.
And I guess. I don't know what the drive-through looks like.
It's very narrow.
Yeah.
I live 5 minutes away from that. It's so narrow that
There's no way she could get out.
she was very stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was.
Okay, so so even at that. And I'm sure that she had visited there before. So that's something to keep in mind, When I'm driving places especially when I'm driving on the highway. One of the and this came back from driver's ed, years ago, I will say years ago. Actually close to 50, and it dealt with. Having a way out, always. What's your plan? How's your way out? How can you escape? And I don't even think they teach that any longer, but the instructor that we had was always talking about knowing how you can get out of a situation to avoid whatever's happening. So I want you to think about all the situations that we're gonna talk today about, what could we do to avoid that from happening? And I do don't cut them off, right? I'm sorry. Is it worth that minute or two that you're gonna get through quicker? It wasn't to her. I mean, I feel bad for that family. I mean, the dog, I'm sorry, I'm a big animal fan, but the dog was sitting there. That just broke my heart. I mean, the family is horrible. That was a young girl. She was in her mid-20s, is that right? I think so. That's horrible. And then there was another actual casualty in that, and that was the folks that were in line or in the parking lot that watched the man kill himself. There was a lot of PTSD issues that came up with that, I mean, and it is trauma. It may not be a long term, but it's something that you have to deal with when you're thinking, I mean, I don't wanna see that. I know I can't even stand my husband hunts. I can't even stand the fact that he kills animals. I'm like, sorry, that's not me. So again, think about it. I want you to think about what's your options. What are your options when we're talking about these? So de-escalation is how you perceive the situation and how you can go. One thing also that we are, as a society, I think especially now, we are so bad at listening to respond and not listening to hear. And people get so anxious about, oh, they're just on the defense because they're listening. I wanna respond. I wanna give it an answer, you know, and it's not because I like that comment. I'm just gonna respond for the sake of responding. So not hearing the whole content. All right, so situational awareness. What does that mean? Does that mean anything to anybody?
Say finishing your surroundings.
Yeah.
That was so.
Absolutely. Head on a swivel. Anybody a mom in here?
Mhm.
Right? It's a mom head, right? I was like, yeah, your head's on a circle all the time. You always know what's going on. And again, I guess I could liken it to when your kids are little, you always do know what are the hazards. We're always honing in on what are they being exposed to. Just expand that, use that. It's a great tool to use in general. I am very good at situational awareness, is to the point where it drives my husband crazy. I can't believe you look at everything. Like, I do, and it's just because of what I do. I've always been that way. I'm very into all the details and wanting to know what is going on around me so that I know how I'm gonna protect myself. I can always think about, okay, what if this situation turns into an explosion over here? How am I gonna get out? Do I have a pathway to get out and get myself out of harm's way? So you could consider it the cowboy seat. Anybody like westerns? It's like, you know, when they went into the saloon, everybody kind of had, my husband's a cop, so his adage was, we never went anywhere where his back wasn't to the wall and he could see the entry door. I mean, that's kind of a standard thing, you know? It's called, it's called the cowboy seat. You wanna have got your eyes on the direction of where anything could come in. And then any kind of protection devices. How many of you have cell phones? Right? How many of you have cell phones that track where you're at? Who do you share that with?
Wise.
House.
Does everybody have someone that they share it with?
Mhm.
And if you don't, you should, okay? Because that tracking device is what's gonna be able to find you if something goes awry, okay? At least as long as you have your phone up, right? As long as you have your phone with you, that's fine. So hide the phone, make sure, if somebody takes you, you have that phone so that they can at least get to somewhere where they know you're at. So then there's all kinds of things what is it, tag phone, is that one? For non-Apple.
Yeah.
For the non-Apple, Apple has one that's built in, so you just do it that way. You can buy those Apple, what are those tags? Apple
AirTags.
sells,
They're
AirTags, yeah,
Yeah.
that's something different, but for the non-Apple users, there's also an app you can download and use. There's a lot of Android folks that we have to also consider that, so. Life 360, that's what it's called. So that's another one that you can download if you don't have it and look at what that looks like. Another thing to be aware of when it talks about protection devices is having a code. We talk about this in emergency preparedness. If an emergency occurred, and this could be anywhere. An emergency happens. How many of you remember 9/11? Okay, do you remember where you were? Do you remember trying to figure out, is my family safe? How did we do that? And that's what I want you to think about, because I know, gotta remember, the circuits were very full that day. And that's a situation where in a crisis or in a severe weather event, like a hurricane, tornado, you may not be able to get through on cell phones.
Yeah.
Texting is always an option. It takes less to get through. It doesn't always, it may take a little bit longer. But is there a way for your people, your folks, your family, your loved ones to know that you're okay? Do you have a safe word? And you need to have a safe word. So think about what that safe word's going to be and make sure you practice it. I say practice it with your family, especially if you have your little kids. If you're talking about, fire or tornado safety, practice that internally so you know where they're at and you know that everything, you get them to school. And my kids, right after the Chardon incident, my boys were in high school. The day after Chardon, they had a bomb threat at our high school. Now, at that point in time, everything was looked at as very serious. They marched all 500 and some kids down an aisleway and put them in the stadium. What do you see wrong with that?
Mass casual.
Okay, the first thing I thought was. And it was not, it was an explicative word. What are you thinking? You got them in a bowl, right? You can just pop them off anywhere you want to. So there was a lot of controversy about that. But my boys had a word, they texted me. They knew, and I was not even in town, I was somewhere for work. And my husband had to go get them, and he was not happy because he's ex-police, and he's like, I don't know what the heck they were thinking, he didn't say heck. But the bottom line was, we had a conversation, it was a simple word. That word meant, we're okay. Well, everything's fine and we'll get there as soon as we can, that's what that meant, so. Think about what that is for you guys. You don't wanna think about that in the middle of a crisis. Again, what's practiced gets remembered. What's talked about, I will tell you what we talk about here today. You will remember about 25% of it. What you do, you'll remember about 50%, and what you talk, do, and show, you'll remember about 70%. So think about that when you're trying to teach your children. If you want them to do something and remember it, what you need to do is tell them what you're gonna do, show them what you're gonna do, and then have them show you. That's the best way to get them to remember something. Now, they'll remember that for about 2 weeks, and then after that, that's just, and that's adults too, honestly, it's adults. And after about 2 weeks, that goes down to about 30%. So reiteration is probably the best thing, practicing it is really important. Driving. What do we do to protect ourselves when driving? We're laughing about that, right? Incidents, how many times have we? It's defensive driving no more now. I drive a state car and I try to do the speed limit. So notice I said try. If I do the speed limit, I'm gonna get run over. I'm gonna tell you right now, I am, I'm gonna get run over. But I also have that other coin that says that if anybody sees a state car and they're going above the speed limit, they're calling the governor, and guess what? I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to play this in-between game here going, okay, if I go just to what everyone else is doing, and I'm looking at my odometer, and think, yeah, I'm doing 10 over already, But again, I'm not gonna kill myself trying to maintain that. I will tell you, with state plates, you can be targeted. I was driving down Route 8 one day going north. And somebody in front of me decided on Route 8 North in the fast lane to stop, dead stop. On Route 8, cause I had state car. Oh, I could hit him, he could make a claim. Thank goodness, I had enough assured clear distance that I could stop and not have that issue. So, again, it's what you gotta do. You've got to be aware. Has anybody had a scenario where they had a situation where they were able to get out of it? Sure.
Maybe like a week or two ago, like right here on Belden, I'm lined up to get on 77 South, and it's kind of a merging lane to get on the highway. I'm somewhere in the middle, there's a truck with a flatbed trailer, just like a regular truck. He tries to get in front of me with a trailer or, whatever, and I keep my speed because I'm not gonna slow down to get way back here. I go up. He proceeds to run me literally off the road. He had a passenger and a little girl in the back seat. So I'm like, this guy's crazy, so I just drove and just got out of there.
Yep. And again, redirect, so think about, it's not a competition, folks. It's like, it's gonna say that. It seems to me that drivers believe this is a competition. And they wanna get out there. Now, how far did that guy get up the road ahead of you? You probably passed him at some
Well, he
point.
was still being aggressive. That's why I was like, I'm just gonna get
Yeah.
out of this situation.
You can tell this, you can tell that. You can tell when drivers are aggressive, and you just honestly, there's two people I stay away from on the highway. Aggressive drivers. I want them in front of me. I don't want them behind me. And hazmat people. I'm just saying, I know what those placards mean. I don't want any of them behind me. I wanna know I can stop well within, and I don't want them hitting me. Okay.
I was just gonna say, in my opinion, worse than aggressive drivers are distracted drivers, which
Mhm.
we've all been guilty of at a time, but on the interstate, you see the car that's just drifting, they're on their phone,
Do you guys have
That's why
a
I stole my
policy
birthday.
about driving with phones? I mean, there's a,
policy.
there's, or
PW.
it's up to you. I mean, I don't know, how you guys look at that. We have a policy. We're not allowed to do it, period. My phone goes in a holder. And usually the only thing I'm using it for is directions to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of the time I can't hear the phone calls anyways when they come in, so I don't even take them. So if you do take a phone call, do you pull off the road?
I have the
You should.
touch,
And, again, that's allowed. So as long as it's hands free, okay, you can do that. You can't have it up to your ear and you can't be talking in the microphone. That's against the law. I will tell you one of the things that we were looking for, like, we've had a lot of the state highway patrolmen come in and talk about this law and what it looks like. And, if you have kids that are teenagers that are driving or getting ready to drive. If they get cited for that. The insurance companies will drop your entire family. That's the trends.
Yeah.
So, be aware. I mean, that's how they're fighting back. Like, they're done. And honestly, how many of you know drunk drivers kill people all the time? Does that enrage anybody like it does me? Now, the drunk drivers get off. They get cited by the police department, right? And then they go to court and then the judges let them off, right? In my book, I said, that's no different, as far as I'm concerned, than somebody that's out there driving on a cell phone. When you let this person out there driving like that. Granted, I believe now that that's come down, the driving under the influence, although I expect that to go back up because of medical marijuana. I can see that going back the other way now. But again, understanding what we're talking about and how to protect yourself, knowing those folks, knowing who to stay away from, because in all honesty, in the big scheme of things, you're only going to get yourself somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes by passing or by getting into a situation. How many of you watch those YouTube videos? The ones I love are the ones from Russia. Because apparently that's a thing they do over there, like they run people off the road all the time. Oh my God, it's nuts, some of the things you've seen on there. Have you ever looked at it? Look at some of the YouTube videos from Russia, it's crazy. So what else about driving? Nothing. Other than when you guys leave, do you tell someone where you're going? That's, it's driving me absolutely crazy. My husband said, where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going?
Every single morning, even at night after say, tomorrow I've got this, he's a homeless inspector, I'm a realtor, so we're just constantly going. But every single morning, tell me again, and then he makes me write it down half the time.
And that's okay.
Right, and I'm okay with that.
Absolutely. It gets irritating. I get it, cause I get the same thing.
Or if I'm showing houses or whatever,
Right.
I'm like, they're my past client, it's so and so, and
Right.
fine. If it's somebody new, he's like, where are you going? List the houses that you're
Yeah,
gonna be at.
wanna know the address, right? And that's like, if, I will tell you straight up, if I'm going to a location where I do not feel safe, I'm not going in. I'm calling my supervisor. I'm not doing this. I need someone to come and be my backup. I need a wingman. I'm not gonna do it on my own. I am not gonna put myself at risk. Because when all is said and done, usually they care whether I die or not. No, they'll just fill my position later. Maybe they will. I don't know. But the bottom line is, I have to care about me first and foremost, and so do you guys. You have to care about you because you have families and loved ones that care about you. So put yourself first when it comes to safety. And that's what I'm telling you. And a lot of people don't think about this until it becomes too late. I know Tara said she was surprised at how many people just didn't think it was important. And I'm gonna ask at the end, we're gonna do a couple of questions. I wanna see what your guys' input is. So structural issues on buildings, what do you guys see there?
Loose handrails,
Okay,
Bowling walls,
pardon
bowling walls,
Bowing walls,
Soft flooring.
flooring,
crooked stairs.
crooked stairs. Uneven steps,
Yeah.
right? That's a huge one, right? That's a good fall up the stairs ones, right? Things on steps, right? All kinds of stuff, you know, and that could be what, ice? It could be plants, it could be, you
Just
know, just
stuff.
leaves, what,
Just stuff,
stuff,
like
in
orders.
general, right?
Even the carpet loose, I've slipped up the stair.
I mean, have you ever been into, I've been to places where there's ridges, you know, and it's not sculptured carpet, it's plain carpet, but it looks like it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so stretched out or it's so worn that there's literally a tripping hazard all the way through it. Yeah, so what can we do about that? I mean, when you guys go in to assess, that's more of a situational thing where you just have to be aware of. Where are you walking? What are you doing? Okay. Take a minute, this is what I always tell people, take a minute to look at where you're going. Determine that pathway. And determine that pathway, so can I figure out how I'm gonna get there? Is there, you know, it only takes a minute, actually, it doesn't even take a minute. You're looking at that direction, if I'm looking at this door, is there anything between here and there that I could trip over?
The air, I trip over air.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Mike's bag might be an issue if I got too close. If we have a fire drill and everybody jumps up in front of me, you all might be that burden, right? Or you might be my tripping hazard, so, yeah.
I think an added element with realtors when we're showing homes is that it's not as though, you know, we're with a couple that's seeing a house, it's not as though we're necessarily all walking through the exact same space at the exact same time. The husband might say, hey, I'm gonna go down and check out the mechanicals in the basement while you're over checking out a bathroom, and so. Obviously, we're talking about our own safety, but making sure that we're warning people, hey, you know, just be mindful, make sure you're turning the lights on as you go, just.
Absolutely, and that's a good point. We're talking about your safety, but you're also considering the client's safety.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one thing that you have to be aware of also. And anything like that, you know, my assumption is you guys go in and you see a home, which you may not, right? Do you see a home every time before you show it?
No.
Okay, so that's the tricky part. If you do see it before, you can, you know what those little issues are, those little nuances, and you can warn them. So again, you know, maybe it's something where you say, hey, let's all go together because I'm not familiar with this house and it's for your own best safety. I don't think anyone would argue that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's just a good selling point to a client that, hey, they're genuinely concerned about my safety, so that's a good positive thing, you know? Not too many people get that. When somebody says they're concerned about my safety, I'm like, excuse me, are you talking to me?
I was just gonna say too, it's not always possible if you're doing multiple back to back, but if you do happen to meet them there, it's like, I'm not great at being early, but all it takes is being there 3 minutes early to turn on a couple lights and do a quick sweep, just to
Absolutely,
be a lead blocker for a minute.
absolutely, absolutely. So there's something that we can do. And that, maybe that's not on our go bag, we can put that in our go bag, just do, you know, do that quick sweep for the first time. Yeah, did you have something? Okay.
I changed what shoes I wear.
Oh, that's such a great comment. Thank you. So think about when y'all come in, I mean, I'm gonna pick on her again because she said she didn't have the right shoes on today to do the kick thing. And I said, okay, so how many of you keep a I call them, how did I say it? Can't read my writing. I wrote something down. So think about just conservative shoes, things that are comfortable, things that are flat, things that are going to be good for you to walk through a facility. How many of you keep a pair of those shoes in your car at all times?
He just,
Absolutely should, right? That's a quick thing. So let's did we put shoes in there? Good, yes. Conservative or smart shoes, I say, you know, and something to consider. Just because you're walking around a place you may not know. Especially in some of the more rural and older buildings where there might be timbers or something on the ground. Make sure, you know, just something to think about. You don't need steel toes, but make sure you have a shoe that has a steel shank in it. So you don't step on a nail that goes through your foot. It happens a lot. So when you're buying those smart shoes or a work boot or a work shoe or something, if it has a steel shank in it, then it's not gonna penetrate something that's gonna go through your foot. What
Me and
other-
Tara were looking at a house once where, we were looking for one of our investors. And we go in and realize that there is a squatter situation. And, as we're going through, I realized it's like, oh, I definitely wore the wrong shoes for this today because I wore my sandals. And there were needles all over the place, there was, and after that, I was like, no longer, I always wear at least tennis shoes, something thick sole. So,
Leave the stilettos at home, Mike.
Yeah, that's what he was golfing in. He's real good.
that's all my safe word.
So that brings up another issue, again, the squatter thing, is to understand. You know, what are you putting yourself in harm's way for at that point? Because honestly, you know, if somebody's squatting, I'm not saying that. You know, there could be a risk there.
Yeah.
There's probably is a risk there. So, you know, you need to figure out what's going on. But you mentioned needles. So if you guys come across the needle, what do you do?
I've had that situation before, with the squatter and needles, and I just immediately called the police.
Okay, and that's absolutely fine. My question would be, you know, are you gonna show the house? And this is just a scenario I'm asking. If a squatter's in there, are we showing the house?
No.
No.
No,
Calling
okay,
the listing agent and saying, let me know when it's clear.
that's fine, and that's fine. What if you find a needle, but there's nobody else there? There's nothing else there?
Tell the listing agent.
Pardon me?
I would still tell the listing agent for needle.
I would
You are the
too.
listing agent.
Yeah, there you go.
Still don't.
Anybody have a water bottle?
And
Okay, how many of you keep water bottles in your car, just like the disposable one? I will tell you, that is probably one of the best tools that you can use. And I teach this when I do my Publix. Parks are always coming across needles, again, public parks, right? Always, and we're gonna talk a little bit about bloodborne pathogens here in a minute, but when we think about. Needles, what we're trying to do is protect ourselves from getting stuck, cause we don't know what they are. Again, it could be an insulin needle. It could be, I don't know that, the hospital, if you get stuck though, I will tell you this. If you get stuck, take that needle with you to the hospital, okay? Very important, cause they can tell you what kind of needle it is, and they can give you a better guesstimate on whether you need to have some other kind of medical treatment, okay? So take that with you. If you do take it with you, take an empty water bottle. And if you simply take the open end, take the cap off, use the open end of the bottle to scoop up the needle portion of it, take the cap and close it, and now it's all secure. All right. Now, you know, I will say some of the water bottles are getting thinner and thinner, so be careful. There are some decent ones in there, but always have a water bottle. So that's a go bag thing, always have a water bottle, have water available, and have gloves, right? How many of you carry gloves with you? Simple, I mean, honestly. These aren't the best, I'll give everybody a glove, so you give you two. Here, just grab two and take them, pass them on. Keep those in your car. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to throw that at you. So you guys at least have a set of gloves. Now granted, I will tell you, gloves go bad. So just be careful with that, but you can buy them, I mean, they're cheap ever since COVID, I mean, everybody has them now. Keep a box in your car, you never know what you're gonna come up against, okay? So we're gonna put gloves in there also.
I would recommend mechanics gloves. They're like that, but they're a
A
little
little
thicker.
bigger, yeah.
And they're usually like a black, and so don't look medical, but they're thicker, and I use them all around.
But a mechanic's glove isn't necessarily gonna protect
it's-
you from
Well,
a
it's
bloodborne pathogen.
no, it's a stretchy glove. It's not. It's thicker than
It's a latex.
it's latex, but it's thicker.
Okay, well, be careful too if you have an allergy to latex, these are nitrile. So folks.
Or nitrile, whatever.
Yeah. Latex is, that's a weird allergy, and if anybody has it, it's bad, it can get really bad, so make sure you know what you're allergic to. You can always use these and put these on and then put a heavier glove over it. That's always the thing, cause those fit, I mean, this is what our first responders use, so. I mean, for the most part, they're pretty decent. But yeah, for what you're talking about, having an extra pair of gloves, a heavier duty glove to do other things. That's not a bad idea, okay? How many of you have utility gloves that you keep? I keep a pair in my car all the time, I don't know why, but I do. And I've had to use them. Electrical issues, what do we see there?
Flashlights. I keep a flashlight.
I'm talking about home electrical issues. Do we ever see any issues there?
Oh, yeah.
What do we see? What do you guys see?
Loose
It
wires.
says lighting.
Loose wires, hanging wires, do you touch them?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so the very first thing that we should always think about is that everything is live, period, that's it. Everything is live, and honestly, the very other thing we have to think about is all wired wrong. I tell people, it's live and it's wired wrong, because don't think just because somebody passed or somebody did some electrical work that meets code.
Yeah.
Cause I find that all the time. If you wanna know whether GFCI works, where are we required to have ground fault circuit interrupter?
These are water outflows and basically.
6 foot within
The water's one.
a sink only. Okay, so drinking fountain, toilets are not required. It has to be a sink where you're turning water on. Okay, they have to be checked on a monthly basis. And they have to work once you test them. How do we test them?
Buttons.
Call your favorite home inspector.
No, you guys are gonna be a home inspector now. The first thing people say is you test the buttons, and that's partially true, okay? But all that tells me is that the button popped in or out. It doesn't tell me that the circuit was interrupted. And remember, the title is ground fault circuit interrupter. The intent of a circuit interrupter is to protect you, the user. It doesn't care whether that circuit breaker back there pops. That's not what we're not protecting the home, we're protecting you from getting electrocuted. Now, if you have anything that you can plug in that has a light on it, you got portable night light, they make little tools for this. But if you have a night light, anything like that that's portable, you can put in your go bag.
Yeah.
You plug it in, you hit the test button, the light should go off. When you hit reset, the light should come back on. If it does not, duly noted that that's not tripping out properly. Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah,
So we need those in bathrooms and in kitchens, that's where they're required.
And garages.
And go anywhere where there's water sources, I mean, if you're doing water, you know, especially on concrete, that's another one, but. It just depends, if there's no sink. Per code, it's not required. Now, is it a best practice? Absolutely, absolutely, anybody that's done work in a, garage or anything knows that. What other electrical? Somebody said the low wires or loose hanging wires, right? Again, that one's kind of maybe you just kind of caution that off and make sure people aren't going near it.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, cause we don't know, people are they like to go on their own to look at stuff, so.
Flickering lights, it's not necessarily, you're not gonna feel unsafe in that setting, but that's showing there's something that's off.
Yeah, and that could be a whole spectrum of things.
Yeah.
It could be a bad bulb, it could be a bad outlet.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of you have ever been in a kitchen where there's, and this is something that I actually learned just in the last couple of years about electrical safety, was what our electrical expert that teaches a lot of our classes was telling us that in his kitchen, he has, the new, one of the new lights, LED ones, right? And he has them, he said that, and they're installed in a fixture. But when he uses certain appliances, they flicker.
Yeah.
And he knows he did it right. It's not that it's an electrical issue. If there's an interference between those things, it doesn't cause a fault issue.
Mhm.
But just know that that's something that if you see that, it may not necessarily, but I always tell people just make sure you have an electrician check it out.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do, right? So be aware of that. And again, if the bulb blows out, there's another thing. If a bulb burns out and you have to get somewhere, do you guys carry maybe an extra LED bulb?
Nope.
Or a flashlight?
Flashlight.
Something else, right? So there's your flashlight. Headlamp works, I don't care. So. Any other electrical issues what we're talking about? Anything anybody can think of? Exposure to things like fire damage, lead, mold, asbestos. Again, one of the things I think we talked about was the meth labs. I've had issues where I've had people call me and say, they're cleaning companies, and that's what they do, they go in and clean, and they've had to go in and clean a meth lab. There's a whole protocol for that. So do not, under any means, way, shape or form, enter into a facility if you think that's what's going on. Call the police, find out, and then get someone in there to clean that. I'm just gonna say, there's nothing, unless you're trained, you have a full-blown hazmat respirator in the 9 yards, don't do it, okay? Lead, what do we do with lead? Anything?
Don't lick it.
Don't lick it, right? Don't eat it, don't chew it. I mean, there's still a lot of houses out there that have lead.
You keep it contained.
You keep it contained. Do you guys do the test strips to see if it has it?
Nope.
Okay, you just have that's on the homeowner. Okay, if they ask, you can just tell them, tell them, hey, Lowe's sells those test kits, you can find out. And there's remediation they can do, they can encapsulate it. If they have kids, they usually want it to be cleaned up and removed. The same with asbestos. What about mold? I bet every one of you's been in a house that's had mold in it, right? I mean, and maybe
Mold's
not this,
everywhere.
maybe not this summer. It's not gonna be very dry. But in all honesty, yes, there is mold and just about everything, and you're right, it is everywhere. It's when it gets to be the black mold and when it gets to be excessive that it becomes a problem, okay? Your best friend there is what? Bleach. Bleach. I mean, honestly, the spray bleach is the best thing. If you are concerned about mold, one of the best things you can do is wear an N95. We've all learned how to do that during COVID, so again, that's something you can keep in your go bag, just an N95 mask for that purpose. So slip, trip and falls, we talked about the stairs. We didn't talk about snow and ice. What happens? I mean, somebody did mention that they bring other shoes with them. If it's snowy or icy out, do any of you have those little cleat things that go over your shoes? Those are great. They're great for walking up a driveway, especially if the driveway is long, I will tell you, and it saved a lot of people. They bite into the ice. Now granted, don't go on people's hardwood floors with those, that would not be a good idea. Or their linoleum, because it will leave marks. But be aware of, again, goes right back to situational awareness. A bigger issue for us is people getting out of their vehicles from the time that they're in the car, and they're changing shoes, and they get out, and that first step is where they go down. Actually, one of our folks was tore his rotator cuff doing that at work, so that's something that we see a lot of, so be aware of that. Septics and wells. And again, the reason I say that is if you're walking the property, you don't always know where hidden holes or openings are. So be very aware of that, okay? First aid and CPR, okay. How many of you have had a first aid or CPR or can do self first aid? And that's what I'm thinking of, because really what you're gonna do is saying you may have to do it on a customer. I hope not, but if you do, if you know it, we offer free first aid class and CPR. So anybody that needs it, let me know. We can get you dates. But self first aid is really, how am I gonna protect myself? What am I looking at? What does that look like? If I get cut very badly, do I have enough stuff in my backpack over here on my kit that I know what I'm gonna do? This is actually a stop the bleed kit. Got a tourniquet in it. And if you take, I will tell you that the hospitals offer this. I don't know what the cost is anymore. But it used to be able to put this around. This is actual tourniquet. They stopped teaching this probably about 20 years ago. They thought it was worse because people would lose their appendix or their appendage. But the bottom line is now they figured out that, okay, you lose an appendage or you die, which is worse.
Yeah.
So death is worse.
So we're clear.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
So understand that, look what it is. It also has medical scissors. It's got a wound wrap in it. It's got a compression gauze. And it's got a coagulant in it. It's also got one of the blankets, because a lot of people go into shock.
Yeah.
Once they lose so much blood. So again, it's a great kit to have. You can create these, you can buy them pre-done, you can go online and order them again. So I'll pass that around to if anyone wants to look at it. So that's something that you have, first aid kit in your car, how many of you have a first aid kit in your car? Good, good, make sure it's stocked. And if you have any kind of the liquidy things. Or any kind of pills, make sure you look at the expiration dates, okay? And especially the liquid portions, because remember, we freeze and thaw in Ohio, just saying. Sometimes things, even Purell. Loses its potency. Because there is an expiration date for Purell. It will lose its potency, it will still work to a degree. But you don't want things to gel on you and not be able to work, alright, so.
That's why I just keep vodka in the car.
Yeah. As long as it's not an open container, I have no
That one
problem.
40 proof.
Alright, CPR. Again, and I will tell you right now that the majority of people still promote compression zone. So if you've not been trained in CPR, I highly recommend it because at some point in your life, somebody will need it. Knowing what to do is also the best way to handle not panicking. And, you know, we're talking about knowing what to do until the time at which first responders get there. So making that first call, what's the first thing we do before we administer CPR?
Assess the situation.
Call 911, assess the situation, make sure it's safe for you to go in, call 911, then start the compressions, okay? And then at that point in time, you're gonna let them take over, all right? What if somebody ODs?
Narcan.
Do you all carry Narcan?
No.
You can. There is free in this county, and actually in in all the counties in Ohio, you can get training for Narcan. I'll send Tara the contacts that we have for Stark County, I know in Greene. The fire department can do it and they will issue you Narcan right there and then. So the training takes about half an hour, 45 minutes, they talk about, the thing about Narcan, it can't hurt you. That's the cool thing about it, that's why they can do this. Okay, now, people always say to me, well, why would I wanna help a druggie? That's not what, I will tell you. The majority of times that they're doing Narcan, it's not the druggie people. It's the grandparents, it's the kids that get into chemicals or drugs that they aren't aware of, it's something that got eaten that's toxic. And stops the heart, or it's an elderly person who accidentally took 3 times their medication. Okay, so that totally changed my perspective when I heard the fire department tell me about how many calls they had for Narcan, I was like, wow, we have that, you know, it's like, and it had nothing to do with the drug overdose part of it. From just addicts, okay, now granted, we have that share of that too. But for your purposes, it's not bad to have it, and it's honestly, it's fairly easy. Now, one thing I will tell you is that they will be combative when they come out of it. So just protect yourself. And it's a nose inhalation, you're simply squeezing the bottle up the nose, you get 2 doses. Sometimes it takes, depending on what it is, it can take 3 or 4 doses. So if you can get it in there, make that phone call, get somebody there, you can do what you can do, okay? Another thing is anybody in here allergic to anything that would cause them to have an EpiPen? You carry it? You carry it?
Not
Answer me
anymore,
honestly,
not anymore, but yes.
and I will tell you, that's usually the answer I get. I have a son who's allergic and I am always constantly reminding him, you need to have that there. Because he's not working in a place where there's a lot of people, and the bottom line is, you need to carry it.
Mhm.
So now you all know, if she ever goes down and there's a bee, we
And
need
the
to get
worst
her.
part about it is like, I love bees, but they just,
They
my body
don't love
doesn't
you.
love them.
Well, and again, we're not hurting a bee,
Mm-mm.
listen, we're trying to save your life.
Yeah.
You know, and epinephrine you can't give to someone unless they are going into shock, I will tell you, because it will stop your heart. That's why you have to have a script to carry epi. If you've never done epinephrine, it's basically looks like a little pen shaped item, it's got a needle, and it's jab it. And honestly, it goes through
Mhm.
and it gets to where it needs to go. Okay, so be aware of that. I had a practice pen, I didn't, I'm sorry.
We're gonna practice on each other.
Yeah, there's nothing in it, so it's okay. They'll just have black and blue marks on their leg. So that's pretty much it, and then the bloodborne pathogen thing, anytime we see blood, okay? Or bodily fluids, and there's all those like lovely biological gross things, there's vaginal secretions, there's all kinds of things that are considered bloodborne pathogens. The concern that we have is what those pathogens carry that could cause us to get sick. So we're gonna protect ourselves, and the bottom line is we're gonna look at everything as if regardless of who that blood came from, even if we know them, they're the best friend of all, we know they don't, we're still gonna treat it as if it's contaminated. That's to protect yourself. That's called universal precautions. So we are always going to wear gloves. We're gonna have some kind of face shield, safety glasses, and we're gonna make sure that we do a cleanup. What do we clean it up with? Anybody know? Here's where our bleach comes in again. It's basically a 10-to-1 ratio of bleach and water. Now, you could actually keep this in your go bag. You simply could put 10 milliliters of bleach in a container, close it, and just add water from your water bottle to make your cleaning solution. You don't wanna do this ahead of time because bleach loses potency, okay? Now, you can also buy anything that's got Clorox in it. Some of the Clorox sprays are just, really, there's enough, as long as it's 10%, we're good, it can clean it up, okay? So if there's bleach, if there's bloodborne pathogens somewhere, hopefully you guys aren't gonna have to do that, but if somebody gets cut and you have to clean it up, now you know there's a way to do it. Make sure we had goggles and gloves. Now, how do we get rid of it once we have it?
Yellow or red bag,
Pardon?
a red bag.
Red bag is usually, that's what everybody usually thinks, but it's only if you generate 50 pounds or more a month, so. We don't have to do that, but what I tell people is, what we wanna do is, again, use that plastic bottle, so if we see a syringe or a knife or something, or glass. We're gonna package that up so that it doesn't cut someone else. And we're gonna put it in the trash so that that person, again, think about the person that has to take the trash out. Make sure that something isn't in there that can stick them, okay, or cut them in the process. And then take all the cleanup material, your gloves, your mask, whatever you had to clean up, and put that all in one thing and double bag it, and it can go in the trash. Okay? All right. Waterborne issues. Anybody ever see any waterborne issues? Don't drink the water.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys pretty much know whether something's city water right up front, right? Okay, what about facilities that are, well? I mean, you know where they are, right? Do we know what the quality of the water is all the time? No, we don't. And I shared with Tara and Mike that my son had looked at a house when they were initially buying their house, and it was a farmhouse, and it was a gorgeous property. And the water, we did a home inspection, we did the water and had the sewer checked, and the water came back, tested positive for E. coli and fecal coliform. Doesn't that sound like you wanna drink it? Don't you just want a big old glass of water?
It's really pretty common, unfortunately.
It was
when we do the
very
well
high.
tests. Was
It
it?
was very high,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, but yeah,
Yeah.
and I will say, okay, it is common. I mean, there's a
I'm
certain
not saying
amount of
it's
that.
right, but it.
There's a certain
does come
amount, but
back.
there's a level at which you don't want. And the problem was, this was a cistern,
Yeah.
yeah. And the cistern was downstream of a creek and a field where there were cows. So again, it would only get worse depending on what had happened. So I was like, no, this is off the, we're not doing that, off the table here. So again, knowing those kind of things, you're not gonna know that, but I would always be cautious. If you think it's a well, I wouldn't want anyone to really. And honestly, I wouldn't even wash my hands in the water unless I knew what it was. Especially if you have an open wound, right? I don't know. So just be aware. It's like, this is like that situational awareness again. What about animals and bugs, dead or alive? How do we handle those?
I'm very cautious. I love animals. I love dogs, but I went to pet a dog one time on a listing appointment, and it chomped down on my hand. I had to have stitches. Everything. It turned out he had an abscessed tooth that the
you
homeowner
didn't
didn't
know.
know about, and I hid it, and
Yeah. And again,
so I'm real
most of the
cautious
time,
about that.
if an animal's aggressive, the homeowners are gonna put him up, okay? And if they're not, then you're gonna make sure they do, because you don't want them attacking someone. And again, there are animals that. That's their domain, they are protecting their domain or their owners, so they could get,
That's
you
their
know,
job.
aggressive, yeah, that's their job. Again, being aware of pets is one thing, what about other critters? I mean, especially if a property hasn't been lived in.
Yeah.
We can get critters, right?
Mhm.
What kind of critters do we see?
Mice.
Raccoons, mice.
I see mice, raccoons,
Rats.
skunks, you know,
Fleas.
bats are big, and bats in the belfry, yeah.
Yep.
Bats are big, don't hurt bats, don't, I'm just saying. I know people don't like them, but they are very good for.
They're very good.
There, yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. And I tell people like, look, if you want the bats to go out,
Put it back.
buy a bat box out, you know, put a bat box, that's what we did, so it's like, you know, I love bats, I think they're really cool. I mean, they're ugly, but they're really cool, but I have bulldogs and they look like a bat upside down.
This is years ago now, we don't think of like, predators in homes, but my dad, he had an office at a home, and this is in Columbus, it's not like it was in Colorado or something, but there was a bobcat in the attic.
Oh, my.
And like, it was months after that they were there, they are skittering around up there, and we find out it's a big cat.
Well, and you know, and that's, you know, think about that, the squirrels are another one that'll come in and do that. So aware, you know, being aware of that, I will tell you the other thing that is very aggressive are the yellow jackets, right?
Oh, yeah.
And actually, we had a situation 2 years ago where they nested in my office area, which is it's just that external. They ate through my drywall ceiling, hole this big. I'm not kidding. I'm sitting there and then thank God, the guy said, you know, it's really good that you had your air conditioning on. So just note to self. If you ever get in a situation where you see that, if you can turn the air conditioning, turn it on as high as possible. They go lethargic when the air is on, they don't like cold. So just a note, that's a good note to know. And the guy said, it was really good that you did that, otherwise your room would have been full of them. It took 2 doses to get them killed, and there were hundreds.
Oh.
And my dog was back there, I was more worried about my dog. But yeah, it was crazy, I was like sitting there and bees were coming down. I look in the window and there's like 100 bees covering this window. That and anything in mass freaks me out, you know, like one-on-one, okay, but. Spiders are another thing, right? You know, spiders, that's like, yeah. So what can we do about spiders? I'm like, yeah, I know, but again, be careful, those brown recluse, honestly, are nasty. Absolutely, and that can really, ticks, another thing.
Nasty Lyme diseases.
Yes, I actually have a cousin that just now got diagnosed with that. And it's really bad. Be aware, if you guys are out walking, if you know you're going to a rural area where you're gonna be out in those kind of areas. Make sure you cover yourself, have long pants. Put on gaiters, I don't care what it is, but have something that's gonna be able to protect you, and then make sure you check afterwards. Okay, that's really a big one too.
If you want, picaridin is basically the DEET for ticks. It's called picaridin.
Okay.
Companies that make like the DEET spray will make that as well.
Oh, oh, yeah, that's like, I had a greyhound and that would kill them. DEET was like what they used for flea and ticks. You couldn't use it on them, that would kill them. I used 7. Cause it would work.
Mm.
You can just,
Got some interesting stuff in it too.
that's with 7, it's got, yeah, it's not bad. And there's stuff out there, you know, that's something that maybe we wanna have is like some bug spray. In our go bag, right? That doesn't go bad, especially, don't get the aerosol ones, get the self-pumping. Because aerosols have a tendency to freeze, so that self-pumping one is not bad. Animals, bugs, clothes and shoes, again, that gets right into what we were saying, make sure that you have, you know, clothes that are appropriate for what you're gonna be doing. Lone worker. How are we, and I think we talked about this earlier, but making sure that when you're by yourself and you're meeting a customer, that someone knows where you're at, that you have a way to, do you guys have you have your phones on you all the time, right? Do you have a panic button or something that you can hit right away?
I think if you tap the power button 5 times, it'll call the cops.
There's also an emergency, how many of you have an emergency contact on your phone? And you can hit that. Right? My Apples do it a little weird. If you hit the button twice, it actually will call your emergency contact or something. I can't remember what it is. But there's something with it. Yeah, it'll do that. I do that all the time. My husband's like, what? Oh, sorry. Just testing. Ergonomics, and that's the sprains and strains, and that's again about looking at what you got, you shouldn't be lifting really anything, right? Other than just like literally walking through the house, I wouldn't worry about any of that, but make sure that, if you're prone to slip, trips and falls, you wanna make sure that you're, where you're walking, that you're walking around things. You're not lifting stuff, because you can sprain your ankle very easily, just, rolling in, and then again, walking in yards, that's a great way to do it when you don't see what you're walking on. Or just getting out of a car and not knowing whether that road isn't always, the path to the doorway isn't always clear, right? So we wanna make sure we look at that. Another thing we didn't talk about was lighting into those dark places. When you go and look at areas, it may not be a well-lit facility, right? Or maybe there's outlets there, but we don't have light bulbs in it.
Yep.
So making sure you have that flashlight, and again, honestly, I have a little portable lantern that I don't even know where I got it. But I swear, it would light this entire room up, and all I do is pull it up, and it's enough to brighten, you could light 2 rooms up with it. And that's what I take if I have to go somewhere where I'm not really sure about the lighting aspect of it. And then any kind of physical hazards, locks, getting into those lock boxes sometimes can be challenging, right? So making sure that you, again, think about that situational awareness when you're sitting there messing around with that lockbox thing. Okay, do I know who's behind me? Is there somebody coming up on me? So be aware of that aspect of it too. Surveillance cameras, those are our friends. I'm sorry, but they are, and it's like, hopefully they work. One thing I tell people is like, if there are cameras in the house, find out if they are hooked up and they're operational. If the listing agent or whoever the owner is, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Ramps, that's another thing, making sure we didn't talk about, but ramps for people that may have, wheelchairs or something accessible, those are sometimes hard to handle. That was pretty much the content that we talked about. So, does anybody else have anything in their go bag? Yeah, go ahead.
I have an extra blanket, cause I have kids in the car and stuff, and then I have a little, like, it's an air pump and,
A little compressor.
yes. And
Okay.
Then put your battery.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I have those, but I have like, it's an actual battery
box.
that, yeah,
Oh,
jump
cool.
box, jump box, yes.
Okay.
I don't know the word, that part.
So here's another little thing. This was actually in my little shovel.
Huh.
Isn't that cute? And you can use as an axe. I'm just saying, these are little, this is a kit that they gave, they thought we were gonna get stuck in the snow, I guess, I don't know. But, bottom line is there's some good stuff in here, a little bit of those type of cloth, these aren't the best, but you don't always get the best things. Okay, it's emergency, there's some gauze in there. Again, another one of those blankets. I like this. I thought this was cute. Candles and matches. Matches are great, right? And if I need to start a fire, I can. Just scraper, whistle. Love the whistle, right? That's an easy one to have.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, what gets somebody's noise? You have something probably even better than a whistle. You may know what it is.
Mace.
Pardon?
Mace.
Mace, you can carry mace, absolutely. I mean, mace, the problem with mace is you have to get close to somebody. I don't wanna get that.
Air horn.
Yeah.
What, an air horn would work, but what else do you have on your car?
Horn.
Your alarm. Hit that alarm button. I always, I will tell you, always 2 things on your person. Keys and phone. Always should be, no matter what, right? So you should always have those, because regardless of what happens, you've got your tools to get out. The rest of the stuff doesn't matter, being able to exit and being able to make a phone call are the two critical things. But if I have my keys, all I have to do, if I'm close enough and you're gonna be close enough, I hit that panic button. Now everybody in the neighborhood knows something's going on, right? At least they're looking, all right? So again, I do like whistles. Those are fine if you have, you know, a reason for them, I mean, or if you know, whatever, it doesn't matter, it's just having it. We did talk about, you can buy the wipes that are Clorox wipes. Those work also, okay? Trying to think of anything else. Anything else? I know you said you had some things.
Oh, I was just gonna say, pepper spray, I always have that
Pepper
on
spray?
me.
There's actually. Pepper spray is something you gotta be careful if it doesn't release, and there's a time frame, there's an expiration date on that stuff. But there's some newer things that are out there, so if you are worried, ladies, if you are worried, there's actually guns, they're not tasers. But there's something will stop somebody in their tracks. And you don't have to have a license, and it's not going to shoot them or maim them, but it will slow them down. Now, that being said. I personally like. Hornet spray. I'm just saying, that's not something that I would recommend keeping, but although it could be something that you could use. The reason I like hornet spray, because I'm a chemist by training. If Mike's coming at me. And I got my can of hornet spray here. I can shoot him 15 foot away in the eyes. Do you think he's gonna come out from the end of that?
No.
Is there a law against that? Nope. Better living through chemistry. I'm just saying, use what you've got. Use what you've got, Lysol, bleach, any of that spray stuff, it'll work. So use what you have.
I leave the bag in the hallway once and I'm getting maced by.
Just wash spray. Alright, so a couple things we talked about, gloves, flashlights, a first aid kit, Narcan. I know one thing that we talked about is like having checklists to remind yourself, what do I do if? And that's something that you guys could create and have those. I think we sent some stuff over to you guys. So in other words, what do we do? What do we do if this happens? Here's the quick steps. And you could actually make it like a key ring thing where you can flip through it to see what do you do in your next steps. And then they kind of clean spice. Yeah.
I have something in my go bag, but it doesn't have anything to do with safety. I always have a towel in my car because every inspection that I have been at lately, I have needed a towel to wipe up water because.
No, that's fine.
Like
Okay,
some water came from somewhere.
But think about that. In my world, water means slip, trip, or fall.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely. It is safety related. Absolutely. Disposable towels, I don't care, but
Yeah.
you're right. I always keep something in there. An old beach towel is great because it's big enough. I use my dog towels a lot of times for what I dry off my dogs with. So again, absolutely. Yes.
Pocket knife with a seatbelt cover. That's also really good, especially if you get in an
Yep.
accident, or if there's rope you gotta cut, something in front of you that's in the way. Anything like that, I mean, and self-defense, so.
Right, absolutely. And if you're not familiar with what he's talking about, seatbelts you cannot cut with a regular knife. If you need to get out, and usually this is a situation where you're underwater or in a situation where you have to get out right away. They actually make a little cutter, and it looks like those paper cutters for Christmas paper, only it's very heavy duty. And it has a huge razor knife on it. It's protected, so you can't get your hand on it, but it literally will slice through your seatbelt. And
It's
get
like a
you
little
out.
hook on the end of a pocket
Yeah.
knife that you have, and
Yeah.
it's nice. There's also
Yeah.
ones that have like glass breakers on the end too.
Yeah, now, does anybody know where the weakest point in the glass of a car is? No, I mean on any window, the corners are the weakest link. So if you're gonna try to shatter a window, if everybody goes for the middle, go for the corner will break easier, so. Okay, alright. Anything else? You guys did great, we have a full go bag. I wanna challenge you all then
It's like a-
to put your go bags together, take pictures, send them to Tara, and then send them to me.
Yeah.
Because I would like to see what you guys put together, and I'll use it for, training for future references, and then share this with your colleagues. Cause it's all about keeping you guys safe, because if we can't keep you guys safe, you can't do your jobs, you can't take care of your family. And you can't live life, which is what we're all here for. So,
Correct.
Cool. We got Melvin's out here, folks, so grab some lunch and. All right, they'll join us. You can go ahead and get us started.
Sure. My name's Jeff Ains. I'm with Jackson Township. I'm a detective there. I've been with Jackson for a little over 5 years now. I've been a detective since December of 22. Before that, I was with a small agency in Portage County, the village of Wyndham. If you're familiar, it's tiny. It's about 2.5 square miles with 2,500 residents, 1 traffic light, no fast food. So that's where I started my career in law enforcement. Before that, I was in the military. I spent 11 years in the National Guard with a deployment to Afghanistan. So I kind of learned different ways of communicating with people there. We did 6 months of training the Afghan army so that we had to do that through interpreters, which made communication even more difficult in an already kind of stressful situation. Since I've been at Jackson, I've been afforded a lot of opportunities for training, including going to verbal de-escalation instructor school. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is verbal de-escalation. We're going to talk about child and elder abuse, and then we're going to talk about some of the newer frauds that are out there. I appreciate you guys having me here today. I've been doing a few of these around, mostly we've been doing it with senior crowds because they are falling victim to a lot more of the crimes than the rest of our population is. It's just, they're easy targets a lot of times. Not familiar with some of the technology, so it makes it very easy for the bad actors to get in there. This is, so just to give you an idea, when I first started doing verbal de-escalation, it's an 8-hour block of instruction. So I have an hour to do 3 different topics. Everything's going to be pretty condensed. It's going to be a little rapid fire. If there's topics you want me to expound on, just let me know and I'd be happy to touch on them a little bit further. If there aren't things that you have questions on, then I guess we'll just get done as soon as everything's done. But there'll be a time for questions, but if you have any throughout the process, just let me know. We're going to start with the child and elder abuse. I am our financial crimes detective, but we still touch on everything. So we have 3 detectives. One is sexual crimes. So we have it's basically our rapes and sexual abuse. And then also they deal in the child abuse. We have a property crime, so like burglaries, stolen vehicles, things like that. And then we have financial and cyber crimes, which is where I fall. And then we all kind of do everything as they come up. So if we're on call and we have a shooting, that's what we're dealing with. It doesn't go to a person specifically. It just kind of luck of the draw there. So I don't spend as much time on the child and elder abuse, but we still deal with it because it's something that comes up quite a bit and we take it very seriously. There's several different types of abuse that you want to look out for, and it's neglect, emotional, physical, sexual, and financial. Generally, all of the abuse is going to fall into one of these categories, sometimes more. Now, there's warning signs that will fall in all of these, and we're going to go over those, but in general, what we see most is we see the neglect, the physical, sexual, and financial. We don't see a lot of emotional abuse victims come in because they don't necessarily feel that there's a crime being committed. A lot of times, if there's emotional abuse going on, one of these other ones is also happening. So if you see warning signs for emotional abuse, it probably means that there's also physical abuse or some other type of abuse going on. So some of the warning signs, somebody that maybe was outgoing and friendly beforehand, they start to become depressed, confused, or withdrawn. Unexplained bruises, burns, or scars, that's a pretty clear indicator that something's going on. Now with kids, I don't have kids, but I have nephews. They're both boys. They are covered in bruises all the time. And I know that their mom doesn't abuse them. They're just boys. So like, there's a difference between actual abuse. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's just, you know, they're learning. They're learning what hurts real bad and what they shouldn't do the next time. And then they do it again anyway. But with those, you have to take it on a case by case basis. If you're going to a house and you see that the kid has bruises, but like they're playing and you can see they're playing rough and maybe, you know, they have a sibling or something like that, you might not immediately assume that's abuse. But if you have some of the other signs that are incorporated with this and also with the unexplained bruising or scars, that's when you want to start to maybe think about looking a little further into it. When somebody is becoming isolated, it's because they don't really know how to ask for help. So sometimes they'll withdraw from everybody else just because they don't really know what's going on. They don't know how to help themselves. And if they're appearing dirty, underfed, dehydrated, over or under medicated, so that's something that, you know, I don't know what over or under medicated is. If I'm just meeting somebody for the first time, I don't know what their baseline is. So that's my only interaction with them. And it'd be the same with you. Now, if it's somebody you know, and all of a sudden they're super withdrawn and slow and speaking, maybe stumbling over their words, you might think, all right, well, maybe they're over medicated. and they're kind of being pulled down by whatever medication they're taking. But that's, again, it's a case by case basis. If there's bed sores or other preventable conditions, again, this could be a sign of neglect, or it could just be that, nursing facilities right now are pretty understaffed and overpopulated, so it doesn't make it okay. You still have to make sure that you're watching for these warning signs, but if somebody hits a call button and they don't immediately get a response, that's not abuse, that's just understaffing. Now, if somebody hits the call button and they don't get a response after an hour, that's starting to become neglect, and you need to make sure that you're reporting those types of things. Recent changing in banking or spending patterns. You may come across this, like if somebody's applying to purchase a house and then all of a sudden they have a bunch of charges and new accounts that are opened up after you told them not to do that. That might be something that would be important to report, because it's possible that they're being taken advantage of by somebody, whether it be a family member or an outside actor. Changes in behavior, so somebody that's normally pretty pleasant and happy, and now all of a sudden they're angry and aggressive and hostile, hyperactive. Those are all things that just changes in behavior in general are something to look out for. Sleep problems, nightmares, again, meeting somebody for the first time, you're probably not gonna have any idea what their normal sleep patterns are, and I don't know that you would be watching anybody sleep in general, so you may not notice these things, but if you see it with your family, that's where that would come in. Self-harm or attempts at suicide, that is because somebody feels there's something they can't get over. There's something that happened to them that they don't feel they can get past, so that could be a sign that there's abuse or other things that need to be considered. Some more. Lack of food in the home. So if you're going through a home and you see that there's no food in there, but there's kids, there should be food in the house. That's something that you should consider and potentially report that. The home's in disarray, again, 2 nephews. My sister-in-law is a single mom. Her house is in disarray pretty constantly. I don't blame her for that. It's the 2 children. So that you have to kind of decide, is this somebody that, maybe should have a little bit more cleanliness going on? They knew that we were doing a showing. Yes.
Would you say that like a hoarding situation would be something to report if there's, kids involved?
Yeah, so if there's hoarding with children in the home, that could potentially be a pretty big hazard. We like to report any hoarding incidents to our fire department, because that's something they need to know. We've had that a few times where there was a fire in a home where there was a hoarding situation going on and they couldn't get in to get to the person that was stuck in the home. They had to crawl in through a window and eventually climb over all the stuff. So yeah, if there's hoarding going on, I mean, there's generally other concerns as well, but especially with children, because it could be blocking their access to hygiene solutions or the restroom, things like that. So yeah, absolutely. If there's no bedding or a safe place to sleep, that's definitely a big thing to watch out for and have some concern. I understand people have different living styles, but if you have 4 children in the home and there's 1 bed on the ground and the children are of different ages, that's just not okay. And that's something that you have to report. And then there are resources that we can give. It's not necessarily criminal at that point. It's just, we want to be able to help that person have better options for their children. If you notice there's no hygiene products in the bathroom or in the kitchen, that's again, something that you should be concerned with. And I'm not saying that they cleaned up and they're in drawers. But like there's nothing, there's no soap to wash your hands, there's no toothbrush that you can see, it doesn't even look like the sink's been used. Those are all things that just kind of pique your interest a little. There's a buildup of trash and the hoarding kind of goes along with this. It can be, again, just that people are busy, but if you have bags and bags of trash, most of the homes we go through when we're doing search warrants aren't super clean. They're, it's hard to tell what's trash and what's not. People have their clothing in bags and then they have that right next to their bag of trash that has maggots in it. It's just, you'll know when it's something that you should probably be concerned with. And then if the utilities aren't working while the home is supposed to be occupied. So if the utilities, again, this could be somebody's just having a little bit of a hardship at that point, and there are resources that we can provide to help with that. Or it could be that they just didn't care, they didn't pay their bills, and that could be a detriment to children or elderly, or really anybody, but especially the groups that we're trying to protect. So we do have a quick video, which is good, but before we do that, it's just kind of an overview of what I just talked about. Are there any questions or additional comments about the child abuse or elder abuse that you guys are wondering about?
So you see something, would it be best to call the police, the law enforcement that has jurisdiction there, or go straight to like family services?
So it depends. If it seems like it's an imminent threat to somebody's well-being, I would say call law enforcement because we generally have a quicker response. But then we'll call either Adult Protective Service or Child Protective Service to have them come and assist. A lot of, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, a lot of times there's not, so I haven't found a case yet where Adult Protective Service has been able to help me. And it's disheartening because I have cases where very clearly family members are taking advantage of this person because of their mental state, and I can't do anything because it's not criminal.
Yeah.
But they should have protections, and that's where that gap is supposed to be filled by Adult Protective Service. So I'm not speaking poorly about them because I don't know their job. I just know that I haven't had a case.
I asked that because I actually had to call, my mother was being kept away from me by a family member, and I called social services, Adult Protective Services. And they're like, well, what do you see? And I'm like, I'm not allowed in there. Last time I saw her, she was all bruised. And so then I called the Stark County Sheriff's Department and I wanted to ask them to do a well check on her, and they refused.
Oh.
Because Adult Protective Services wasn't involved.
I can't speak for other agencies. If that occurred in
It
Jackson.
handled it
Yeah,
since,
that's
but-
good, yeah. If that occurred in Jackson, I can tell you that we would go do a welfare check. That's, I mean, anytime we get called, we could even have called, and this happens. Sometimes people are vindictive, so they going through a divorce and they'll have the other person call and say that the kids aren't being taken care of or whatever it is. And even when we know, because we were there an hour ago, we still go out and we'll make another contact with them, or we'll do it the day after, the day after.
And not to my family's dirty laundry, that family member had taken out a protective order against me. So that was already on record.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, each situation is gonna be a little different. For us, in my jurisdiction, where I can only speak about what we would do, if we get called to do a welfare check, we're gonna do it. Because we would rather go out and annoy that person, than not go out and have it turn out to be something that was a good clue.
Do you do welfare checks on anyone that calls, or does the person that called have to like own the home or
Yeah, they don't have to own a home, they have to have some sort of.
affiliation with them?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we'll get welfare checks from like neighbors. They'll say, hey, my neighbor's mail's building up. We haven't seen them in a while. That's not like them. Can you please do a welfare check? So we go and do that. Sometimes we'll get the mailman. So again, mail's building up, whatever it is. Other times it's just somebody was walking their dog. So we had somebody that took their own lives and they left a note on their door. Somebody was walking the dog and noticed that there was a note, didn't call us. And then they waited a few days and then they actually read the note and they ended up calling us then. So you don't necessarily have to have a physical connection or a familial connection with that person, but you should have some fact in why you're doing the welfare check. Because if you call in a welfare check and you're using 911 and it turns out that you knew that what you were saying wasn't true, you could be criminally charged for that. So I don't think anybody in this room would be doing that, but surprisingly, we do get that.
I've had to do welfare checks as a landlord before.
Yeah. Yeah, we prefer when landlords do come with us because then we don't have to break doors if there's an actual exigency. So like if we have something where the mail's building up and we can see somebody laying on the floor, if we don't have a key, we're gonna break the door. And unfortunately, that's just part of it, I guess. We try not
Gotta
to.
replace the door.
Yeah, and our fire department has cool things that, they spread the door frame, so we don't have to break things as much, but they're slower to respond sometimes when we're asking for help. They're still waking up. All right, so let me pop out of here.
Elder abuse is a growing problem in today's society. It refers to.
That very good. Okay.
I got you.
Okay. Try again. The rest of the videos are embedded into the presentation. I just didn't get this one in. We can't do it. It'll be okay. Yeah, I'm trying to.
Well, we were on this now.
Well, the video says what I just told you. So,
Fair enough.
I can provide the link to the video if you'd like, but you can just Google, signs of elder abuse or signs of child abuse, and generally, there's some pretty good information on there. But hopefully, when you go back to the presentation, that'll be able to.
You can try just like unplugging and.
Yeah, it's just not working for anything but presentation.
Right,
That's
yeah,
okay.
I can share that out later if you'd like.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the next thing we're gonna talk about is verbal de-escalation. Now, this is what I mentioned. Normally, I can do an 8-hour presentation on this. We can do more than that, but 20 minutes or less is gonna be difficult for me, so bear with me, but we're gonna try and go over this. All right, so for verbal de-escalation, for us, it's extremely important because the idea is that if we can de-escalate somebody using words, we don't have to use physical force, which, one, we don't want to use physical force on people, contrary to what the media likes to say. It can hurt us, it can hurt somebody, it can violate somebody's rights, it can put our jobs in jeopardy, it can put their lives in jeopardy. So we don't like to do that. Preferably, we'd like to just use words, say, hey, please stop doing what you're doing, and have that be the end of it, but it doesn't always work that way. So in this world, we have 3 types of people. We've got the agreeable, the challenging, and manipulators. So in general, the population falls into one or multiple of these categories. Then there's the rhetorical triangle. So Aristotle came up with 3 means of persuasion. So different ways that you can speak with people in order to get their personality to jive with what you're trying to say. So with that, you've got ethos, that's through credibility and trust. Logos through consistency and logic, and then pathos, which is based on emotion. With rhetoric, which is Aristotle's art of persuasion, it's using speech to persuade. With the ethos, again, you're going to want to touch on their ethical appeals. So why is it the right thing to do? Logos, it's their logical. Why does it make sense for me to do this? And then pathos, the appeal to one's emotions or their passions. So this would be something along the lines of saying, if you were a police officer, if your family member was a police officer, what would you want them to do in this situation? Or what would you have me do? This is my job, I have to do this, making them feel emotional about it. And then the guy who put together the presentation for verbal de-escalation that I went through, his name is Chief Dolan, and he put those 2 together and created what's called the rhetorical continuum. And this takes all of those things, so Aristotle's art of persuasion and rhetoric, and combines it with his own kind of twist. So with ethos, about 80% of the population is going to fall into that category, which is nice because that's the easiest one to overcome. Basically, you're going to get the agreeable people. This is where you're going to get a meet and greet. You tell them who you are, why you're there, and why you're asking them to do whatever it is that you're asking them to do. Just introducing yourself will get these people to agree, which is great because then you don't have to worry about anything else. With logos, you're going to get another 10% of the population. So about 90% of the population will fall into these 2 categories. These are the challenging individuals. Challenging doesn't necessarily mean that they're being argumentative. It just means they want to know why. I'm that person. My supervisors know that I like to know why, and it makes them mad, and I get that. It's like a child asking why all the time. That's me. So I want to know why I'm doing something. You could tell me you want me to move a pile of rocks from over there to over there, and I'm going to ask you why, and you say you just want to watch me move the pile of rocks. Got it. I'll move that pile of rocks, but I needed to know why. I'll still do it, but I just like to understand. And a lot of people are that way. So if somebody asks you why, please don't try and take it personally. Understand that they just want to understand what you're wanting them to do and why you're wanting them to do it. So give a logical explanation of why they should comply with whatever you're asking. Pathos, you're going to get another 5% of the population here. These are the manipulators. For us, we give them a positive option, outweighed with a negative consequence if they don't go with the option. I don't know that you have that ability as much because you don't have tasers. At least if you do, probably don't tase people.
Yeah.
But what we do is we would say something along the lines of, if you don't do what I'm asking, this lawful command. So if you don't get out of the car, I'm going to have to get you out of the car. If I have to get you out of the car, you're going to go to jail. Are you telling me that you would rather go to jail than just get out of the car? And 5% of the population are going to not get out of the car, and they're going to make me get them out of the car. The rest of the population will just, based on these other 2 categories, I've explained why, I've explained the options, I've explained what the negative consequence could be, then they will just go ahead and get out of the car. But there's 3 to 5% of the population that just fail to comply anyway. So you can go through all of this, you can give them a layout of exactly why you want them to do what they're doing, the consequence if they don't. So before, and forgive me, what is everybody's positions within here? I'm sure that, is it all realtors? Is it?
Pretty much, some of us
Mortgage
are
lenders?
staff and leadership
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know when I bought a house, I was told that I wasn't supposed to open any new loans. And I wasn't supposed to do, there were a couple other things, but they were like, if you do this, it could mess up the transaction. This would be a perfect example of that. So you say, I am saying that you should not do any of these things. If you do them, I can't stop you, but the negative consequence is that the house deal may fall through. You may not get your loan, you may not be approved. So it's still applicable, it's just you don't have the ability to take somebody or take them to jail because of it.
For opening a new line of credit.
Yes, exactly. I told you not to. Yeah. But. Right, yeah. A little bit, a heck of a lot more deals, I bet, yeah.
Mike does it all the time.
So if you don't have that ability, so within the first 95%, 3 to 5% of the population just are not gonna comply with what you tell them to do. They're gonna think, I'm the exception, I can open that other line of credit and it's not gonna affect me, because why would it? That's where you're going to either, for us, it's take action, do whatever the negative consequence was, or just disengage, walk away. So it's either take an action, try and help them through it and work through it anyway, restructure the deal, whatever it is, or disengage and say, I told you not to do it, now I can't help you, I don't know what you want from me, we'll have to find another deal. And then paraphrase. Paraphrasing is pretty important. I would say that it's one of the more important things that we can do. It's making sure that you're understanding what the person's saying. And the way you do that is just say it back to them, but in your own words. So if somebody tells me that they don't want to get out of the car, I might say, so if I understand correctly, you would prefer to go to jail than get out of the car. And they might say, no, I don't want to go to jail. I just want to understand why you're telling me to get out of the car. That's fair. Okay, I'm glad that I asked instead of just ripping you out of the car. Now I can go back through, explain my reasoning of why I want them out of the car. And then if they choose not to do it, okay, well, you've taken away their excuse of, well, I didn't know, I didn't understand. So by paraphrasing, you know that you're on the same page for that person. And the 2 most powerful words in the English language, at least according to Chief Dolan, are empathy, so seeing the world through the eyes of the other. It's pretty important to do that. You don't necessarily know what other people are going through. This is why I tell people not to have road rage incidents, because you don't know what the person in that other car is going through. They may have just lost a family member, they may have just lost a child, they may have just lost their job, they may have done something where their mind is not right, and you honking at them or cutting them off and then following them, or they cut you off and you follow them, you go to the gas station to confront them. You don't know what that person's gonna do. Just try and let it be, turn the other cheek. But if you can't, you wanna just try and see the world through their eyes. And then paraphrase. So this is reflecting your understanding back to the other end of her own words. Now for us, we have something called rope-a-dope. It still applies, it's just people do this. Rope-a-dope is a phrase that was coined by Muhammad Ali. It's where somebody tries to get you to do something by basically making you angry. So for us, people just don't comply. They have really funny things they say to us that are really mean. They do things to try and get under our skin. Our job is to not allow that to happen. So if somebody is pushing your buttons, don't allow them to. And I know that's much easier said than done.
Yeah.
But let's see if we can get the video to work.
But you win a lot of your fights as well as in the ring, outside the ring as well. You psych people out, don't you, beforehand?
Well, this works, you don't really psych them out, you really make them fight hard. You don't psych them out, you don't put fear in them. And that's the thing, it makes them fight too hard, it makes them anxious. They gotta get you, like I told George, I said, okay, sucker, I'm backing up in the ropes, and I want you to take your best shots. And I just stood there, come on, show me something, kid, you're not doing nothing. You look at you, you ain't got nothing. Come on, sucker, show me something. Show me something, sucker. If you think I'm not there, you watch the films. I talked him to death, and I made him so angry. He just beat himself out. He was so tired, he was swinging and just falling on the road. I said, man, this is the wrong place to get tired. Say, you are in trouble. Didn't I tell you your hands can't hit, your eyes can't see? You know I'm the greatest of all time. I tell him this when we get in clinches. That was the man to beat him and talk to him. You know, they talk back to you. No, one of them fellows talk back to me, that's Joe Frazier. I hit Joe Frazier with about 90 punches, if you remember the first fight. He hit him with everything. The man took a terrible beating. He wouldn't fall. I said, are you crazy? I hit him there. You must be crazy. He said, yes, man, I'm crazy. I'm crazy.
I'm glad the video worked, because that's much better than I can explain it. So you want to make sure that you're not taking things personally, because that person's trying to get you angry. And in our position, they're trying to get us angry, so we do something we shouldn't do, so that they can have a video of another police officer doing something they shouldn't do. There's plenty of them. It's not hard to find that. I mean, you could literally spend an entire day watching videos of police officers making terrible decisions. And some of them shouldn't be in the profession. A lot of them shouldn't be in the profession. Some are just making a bad choice because somebody said something. We don't see the whole picture, but in a lot of these, you don't need to. And I mean, we just had an incident in Canton where the guy got fired. I'm happy with that. I'm glad he got fired. You can't just go kick people. Like, it doesn't work that way. So, you just have to try to not allow people to get under your skin.
You win a lot of your fight.
All right, so this next one is groupthink. Groupthink, it's been around for a while. There's been a lot of studies on it. It's where everybody feels like they kind of want to do the same thing. And if you ever get in elevators, with other people, if you're doing it, you get in the elevator yourself, you're not going to notice this. But if you get in the elevator with other people, you'll see where they stand. It's somebody's going to go to the corner, and then when somebody else gets in, they're going to go to the other corner. And then when somebody else gets in, they're going to either stand in the middle or go to another corner. Nobody's going to face each other. If you really want to make people uncomfortable, go in the elevator and face the wall. Don't say anything, just go in there and stand and face the wall. That's how you make people uncomfortable. And it's really fun if you're into that. If you're not into it, don't do it. It is a good thing to do. So this is this video, it's old, so much like the last one. I do think that it drives home the point. It shows the visual of groupthink. It was a candid show from a long time ago, but they'll do a good job of explaining it.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality. But little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups. With his hat on in the elevator. First he makes a full turn to the rear. Charlie closes the door. A moment later, we'll open the door. Everybody's changed positions. Let's see if we can use group pressure for some good. Now, in a moment, on Charlie's signal, everybody turns forward. Notice they take off their hats. Do you think we can reverse the procedure? Watch.
You can see how confused he was. It's the pressure of being a part of the group. Everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something. So it's very real. And if you start to pay attention to those things, you're going to see that when you have a group of people and, one person takes a drink, somebody else sees that, they take a drink. If somebody walks into a restaurant and they go and sit down in one spot, you're going to see how they have patterns of where they fill in around that person. Same with elevators. So groupthink's a pretty powerful thing. It's hard to get out of that. So there's another concept that's called the power of one. We're not necessarily getting into it today. We don't have the time, but very briefly, it's you want to be that one that steps out of the group There's a video that we watched where there's a woman who gets her foot stuck between like a trolley and the loading ramp. And it's stuck there and nobody's doing anything, and you just see people keep walking by and doing nothing about it. Some people are even workers, they're wearing, they're workers for that trolley. And they don't do anything, and then one person goes over and starts to try and push the train, and then all of a sudden everybody else wants to help. So it's, you wanna be the one person that steps outside of what the norm is, what everybody else is doing. You don't have to be weird about it, but you can actually step up and not follow the group. So that's it for the de-escalation. Are there any questions about that?
I'm just remembering a story, and some of you will probably know what I'm talking about. It was the 1970s in New York City, where the woman was being assaulted in the street. And it was a totally public event, and neighbors could open their windows and see that it was happening. That there was no doubt that it was happening, but because no one was taking action, she ended up getting killed in the street. And it's just like the power of groupthink, either to do something or not do something is profound.
Yeah, I mean, we see it a lot with car accidents, people are quick to stop and look at car accidents, but not very many people will get out and actually try and help.
Yeah.
They'll get their phones out and start recording, same with fights at, you mentioned MBAR, we are there quite a bit. But, yeah,
There's a mixer tonight, so.
yeah.
For realtors, come by.
Generally, it's after about midnight, 1 o'clock, that we start having the problems, but they can get pretty bad there. I mean, we have a lot of issues, around Hall of Fame time. We have anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 people that come to MBAR and jerseys. It's nuts, and they're from all over the country, so you have all these people together, and then you mix in alcohol, and you mix in sports, because they're all there for their favorite team, or whatever it is, and we have a lot of issues. But then when we have those issues, I was working this past Hall of Fame, and I was standing at the front door, and there was a fence that went around, where they had a little fenced in area, I don't know if any of you were there, but where they had the band on the side of the building. And I saw some legs flailing in the air, and I'm like, well, that's not normal, so I'm gonna go check that out. When I went around the corner, and some guy was getting jumped, and they robbed him, and they took off running, and we had to chase the guy, and he had a gun, and it was crazy, but all of these people were just walking past this guy getting jumped and robbed.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, like, come on now, you don't have to step in, but like, at least there's 30 of us there, just yell for help, yell for the police, do something, but instead, no, everybody's just recording, watching this guy get beat up and have his jewelry taken.
Wow.
And it's frustrating for me, because I understand, I don't want everybody to step in, they shouldn't have stepped in, the guy had a gun, so it's a good thing that people didn't step in, but notify us, do something beyond just recording. So groupthink's pretty important. Try to not be the group, I mean, you wanna feel like you're part of a group, but be able to think outside of what the group is doing. Okay, so the next part is frauds. Now for fraud, I'm sure this comes up a lot, and you can have this affect your personal life, but also professionally as well. There's a lot of warning signs for frauds. Now, some fraudsters are better than others. Some, you can very quickly tell this is not a real email because of the punctuation, the grammatical errors, the fact that, they call you by the wrong name, or they spell your name wrong, the way that the font is. There's lots of ways that you can quickly tell, but the fraudsters are very good now. So you have AI fraud. We're gonna get into those a little more, where they can actually sound like somebody because they've recorded that person, and now that person basically is talking to you because of the AI software. So if you see any of these things, which we're gonna go over them, they're kind of put you on alert. So there's a claim that you've been specifically selected. We get that a lot with like the Publishers Clearinghouse. If you didn't play, you probably didn't win.
Yeah.
First of all. Secondly, it's 2024. If you're winning a 2020 Mercedes, but you have to pay $40,000 in tax, that's probably not right. Don't do that. But if you've been specifically selected, you won a cruise, you've won this, maybe take a step back. Sometimes you can if you play different raffles or things like that, but a lot of times it's just a scam. High pressure sales tactics, that happens a lot. So you'll say, I'm just not interested, and then people start getting mean. Just hang up the phone. No real salesperson is going to be mean to you because you don't want the product. Reluctance to answer questions. So this is where you might say something like, well, what's your name? And they're like, I'm not telling you my name. Okay, well then I'm done with this conversation. A request to confirm personal information. If your bank calls you, you don't need to confirm anything that they say. You can just hang up the phone. You can call them back at the number that you find online or on the back of your card and confirm whatever that way, but if somebody's calling you, they called you for a reason, you don't have to confirm who you are, they called you, so don't do it. Request for payment other than credit card, so if somebody asks you to pay for your bond in gift cards, don't do that, that's just not real.
I frequently am apparently texting everyone, this is Mark, team leader. Can you go to a grocery store for
You
me?
get that all the time.
And Rich, our broker, this is Rich, broker, KW Legacy Group, can you do that? I'm in a meeting and I don't have time to talk.
Yeah,
I need to.
but we get that, so larger corporations, Meyer, we just had over $100,000 worth of wire fraud because of that.
Wow.
At a lot of the gas stations will have people, but they're very, so again, they're very convincing, that was, I mean, you could pick up on the fact that the person doesn't speak that way.
Yeah.
But they'll get calls from somebody that says, hey, this is whoever with fraud, your manager is being investigated for fraud, I need you to go into the safe. They have the passcode, they have the structure of what is supposed to be happening, and it's very believable, so like, wow, just because somebody falls for fraud doesn't mean that it was the fraud where the person's speaking in broken English and you have no clue what they're even trying to say and they just fell for it. It can be that it was a very elaborate fraud, so they're good.
Yeah.
Wire transfers and then private courier. So we've been having that private courier one a lot where they send, it's called the grandparent scam a lot of times. So they'll call in and say, this is officer so-and-so with whatever police department. Your grandson or daughter was just in a car accident. They want to talk to you. They hand the phone over and then the AI picks up. So they have already recorded that person's voice. They have that voice now saying, grandma, grandpa, whatever. This is what happened. I need you to pay my attorney fees. They're gonna call you in a minute, and then they hang up the phone, the officer hangs up the phone, whatever it is, and then an attorney calls in, yeah,
I'm finished up, but I have a question in regards to that.
sure. So the attorney calls in and basically says, your grandson has been arrested, I'm gonna send a courier, the judge has requested bond be set for whatever, it was a pregnant woman that was driving the other car, and so we need this bond. They send an Uber driver to come pick it up. We've actually intercepted the drivers before. Generally, it's an Uber driver.
Wow.
And they're sending the money to Columbus or big hubs where it gets sent off again and again and again. But they tell you to put cash in a box with magazines, seal it up so the person doesn't know what it is. They pick up the package, they go, and then you'll never see that money again.
Wow.
Then the attorney, when they see that Uber driver is going to the destination, they call back and say, hey, the judge just called back, they upped the bond because the person's not doing well, they may lose the baby. So the bond got upped, now we need another $20,000 cash. And they'll send another courier, another Uber driver, and they go and pick up the cash again, and that person's out $50,000-$60,000 in cash. Which a lot of times I blame the banks for that, because the person goes to the bank and says, I need this money, and they say, what for? And then they say, well, the person told me not to say. Or the person told me to buy a car, or to tell you that I'm buying a car. Like, okay, no. The person said, what do you need the money for? So I have a little bit of frustration with that, because then they don't give the money back to that victim. And I can't do anything for them, but yes, so.
So, you mentioned about AI recording the voice. I'm curious, is that whenever we get those calls where it rings and then the blue bloop?
So the bloop bloop just means that it was from a call center, so that could be that they're recording your voice, it also could just be that it's a call center calling you. I don't know that I've ever received one of those that was worth taking. I don't think I've ever gotten a call, like my doctor's office doesn't call me from a call center. But professionally, I don't know if you guys have services that you do get calls from maybe a call center, maybe like lead generation, things like that, I don't know. So there may be a time where that is a legitimate call, but don't say anything. So answer the phone, don't say anything.
So it's really hard in our profession not to say hi, because we don't know if it's a bloop bloop call or.
Sure. Yeah. So say hi, but once you hear the bloop bloop, don't say anything after that. And if they say hello, 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 is this whoever? So I get the call all the time. May I speak, or is this Jeff? I don't say yes, because once you say yes, if it is recording, they can use that yes of your voice to opt you into whatever they want. So now they can go and they can sign you up for magazine service, they can sign you up for food delivery service, they can sign you up for whatever, because they have you saying yes.
So do you say correct?
I say speaking is what I say personally. And then when they say, I'm calling you about whatever account, I say, this is the police line, are you sure you want to continue this conversation? And that works for me, but.
I mean, can we say that?
Yeah. Sometimes I've had people that are still try and get it. They're like, but you can still win this cruise. I'm like, no, I can't. Thank you, though. I appreciate the effort. A+ for effort, but no.
Yeah.
So you just have to be very careful what you say in general, but in your profession, it's probably a little more difficult. Yeah.
So like the AI voices of the kids, is that just like of any kid or is it like elaborate, like they went to your Facebook page and got a video of your kid, like,
It can be both. So
yeah.
a lot of times at that time, when the family member gets the call, they're already filled with adrenaline and fear. So they think that their grandchild or their granddaughter or their son, their daughter, whoever actually was in a terrible accident and is now in police custody. So they may hear what they want to hear, but there have been actual documented cases where it is the child's voice. And it's terrifying.
So that might be where with Deb earlier, having that code word or whatever.
That's what we suggest. We call it a passphrase. So with your family, your friends, if you ever receive a call like that, have something set up like pineapples, whatever you want it to be, I don't know. But the person calls, they say, I'm in trouble, whatever. Okay, what's the passphrase? AI won't know it. They can't guess it, and you'll know immediately. So that is a great suggestion to try and get past that, but still, it's difficult.
So AI is good enough that it can have a conversation with you, like, that's freaking
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And how common is this?
So last year in Jackson, my cases alone, I had about 10 of them. Now that's, I don't know, about 5% of my cases, maybe a little less. Well, last year it was a little less. I guess that would have been like 2.5% of my cases last year.
Yeah,
So-
but even 10 is a big number.
Right, and each one of those is between $50,000 and $100,000 in loss to the victim. So it's not, we're not talking like, I need $1,000 for bond, which is like 99% of bond for any criminal activity in Stark County is 10,000, 10%, $1,000. So when they're saying 15,000, 20,000, 50,000, 50,000 is a $500,000 bond. It's just, if you don't understand that, you think like, well, shit, they got in a car accident, this is bad. It must be really bad. I'm gonna get them the money, get them out of jail. Don't do it. But yeah, it happens. And that's just in Jackson. So I work with Perry officers, I work with a lot of other detectives, and they also have just as many happening in their jurisdiction. So, I mean, it's a multi-$100 million theft every year, just in Ohio.
And do you think there's a lot of people who are just too embarrassed to even
100%.
call you?
Yep.
So it's probably way worse.
Yes, yeah. We get that quite a bit, where we hear it from family members. They told me, I told them to report it, they didn't report it, so I'm coming to report it. Well, unfortunately, I can't accept a crime reported on behalf of somebody else unless there's some sort of condition that would allow me to take that.
Okay.
Power of attorney, or there's some sort of disability stopping them from being able to care for themselves. That's frustrating. I have a case just like that now where a father, he's a retired firefighter, and he signed his pension over to somebody from overseas that had put him in a romance scam. And he doesn't want to report it, and he doesn't want us to fix it. It'd be very easy to fix. We just call the pension board and they fix his bank account. He doesn't want us to. And so the family had to go out and get control of his bank accounts and all that. And it's just, it is embarrassing and it's sad, and people don't want to feel like they got duped. But they are very good, and that's why I try and tell people. My neighbor's a PA, and she got the bond scam. She missed jail duty, and they said she owed $5,000, so she had to go withdraw it and pay it in gift cards. And right on the gift cards, they said, if you are paying bond with this, you're being scammed. And she still did it. She's very intelligent. It's just she was afraid because she's a single mom. She had her daughter that she needed to worry about, and they were saying they were going to arrest her right then and there. And she knows I'm a police officer. She could have just hung up and called me, and I would have been like, no, stop it, and don't ever answer that phone again. But she was embarrassed. She didn't report it, and it ended up being that, you know, she's never gonna see the money again, which she wouldn't have anyway, even if she reported it. We can't get gift cards back.
Yeah.
But it helps us build stronger cases if we do identify a suspect. It's not just one $5,000 case, it's 100 $5,000 cases. Great questions, thank you. All right, so the use of threats, if you don't comply, you're gonna be arrested. That we don't say that. So like, if I call somebody and say, hey, if you don't come in and pay your bond, I'm gonna arrest you. I might say that, but I'm not gonna be like, I'm coming to your house right now. I'm just gonna come to their house and arrest them. So if you didn't do anything wrong, you should be fine. The call starts with that robocall, so a lot of times that's, you just. With lead generation and whatever else you guys have in your industry that might be giving those robocalls to you, you probably have to answer it anyway, just be very careful what you say. The claims to be a friend or relative and need money, we covered that. And then when they contact you. So when you contact someone, you know who is on. When they contact you, you don't necessarily know, so just be careful. They dangle bait, usually money, so this is, we're seeing this a lot with Spectrum and. There's
I got
another,
that call the other day.
yeah, it's 40% discount.
Yeah, and I used to work at Spectrum, I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
We don't do this.
Yeah, so that's gotten a lot of people because they use a number that comes back as being Spectrum. They have the exact call waiting as Spectrum, the exact, the spiel they give. They've recorded that and they're using that. But it's the same guy. So I've called the number back on 3 of these cases, the same guy, John Smith is what he goes by. And every time he's like, I'm transferring you to my manager. And then I'm like, John, this is you again, bud. Like, what are you doing? And it seems like you're making enough money. You could probably hire a second person to at least be a different voice on the other end of the manager. I guess you want to keep it all to yourself. Yeah.
2 questions. We have, well, what if you are on the do not call list? Does that just not matter?
Yes,
Like
no,
you can
yeah.
definitely still get, okay.
100%, yeah. No, caveat to that, if you continue to get the same call and it's an actual business, you can report them and they can be fined for that, but they'll still call you.
Okay. We have an app called Forewarn where we can like look people up and see like before we go and meet with them.
Yeah.
On like, because we're meeting them for the first time.
That's nice.
How like accurate is that? I guess have you heard of it?
I've never heard of that.
Okay.
But I've heard of similar things where it's just kind of
Like
like
type their phone number in and
yeah, it's almost like a public record search.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, so
It's kind of like CGIS, but does everything, not just Stark County.
it doesn't just do Stark County, because that would be my only concern with CGIS,
Yeah.
so. You can search somebody in CGIS and they've never done anything here, but in
Right.
Akron, they murdered somebody, like it could be.
Right, the only
completely
problem I've ever found with the app is it does tend to repeat some of the charges over and over, but if you pull somebody up and they've got 72 charges, and then you start looking through them, it's like assault,
Yeah, it's like
domestic
the
violence,
same
those are
thing,
the I'm not meeting with.
Like I had
The traffic
someone,
violations, we all speed.
I had someone come through my open house and they had stalking on there, so
Oh,
it's
no,
like,
that's
great.
I had a hate crime once.
Yeah, I've had like some pretty intense things.
Yeah.
Come
I had
up.
a guy chop up a guy's hand with a hatchet.
On Forewarn?
What?
What?
He was bragging about it. Wait, so we were like,
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry. They lead with.
But I told him, I was like, if you don't feel safe in Akron, he's like, no, I'm the one people need to fear, and then I look him up on Forewarn, I'm like, you weren't lying.
Yeah, at least you're honest, yeah,
Wow.
we're not gonna meet, but at least you're honest.
Yes. Ugh.
Yeah, well, that's crazy. What do you say to that?
I was like, hey, you know what, I just wish you luck on your home search.
Great deflection, good job, yeah, all right, okay, I'll keep that in my back pocket. All right, so back to the warning signs, if you have to pay them first, so you have to pay that upfront fee in order to get it, generally, you're probably being scammed. And then they want your personal information and you have to wire the money or send gift cards. In your profession, wiring is common. That's anything over $10,000, right? You have to wire it. So that's common. In every other profession, it's not as common. So if somebody's like, I'll do that plumbing service, but you have to wire me $1,000. No, that's not real. That's not a real thing. The plumbers don't do wire transfers. So just use kind of common sense though, but for you, it's a little bit more difficult because it is more commonplace. All right, so some of the current popular scams, we've got the Facebook Marketplace. If you sell anything on Facebook Marketplace, you know how frustrating this is. The Perry detective, she posted something she was selling and within minutes got like 15 scams. And every one of them is, oh, my family member can come pick it up. I'm at work. I can't do it. Can I send you the money up front to hold it? And then they'll send a check that they want you to cash. And then it is either for over the amount that it is. They want you to send the money back to them. And then it turns out that it was a fraudulent check to begin with and you lose all of your money. So just be careful with Facebook Marketplace, gift card scams. This has been huge and it's not going away. If you buy gift cards for people, be very careful getting them at the stores. People are going in and taking gift cards that they've already gotten the numbers to resealing them and putting them back on the shelves, so when you go to buy it, you automatically load their card for them, they get the money and it's spent immediately. So,
How what?
they take, so they go, they grab these cards off of the shelf, they don't pay for them. They take them out to their car or wherever, they get the numbers, they write them down, they load them into their Apple Card or whatever, they load them into whatever that is. Then, when the money hits, they spend it, so it's gone already. You go to buy the card, you pay for the card, you just loaded their card on their account.
Wow.
And they have the money, and you have no idea because you're not going to spend that. You're sending it as a graduation gift, and the person's like, man.
I got one of those recently, and I'm like, it was supposed to have $50, it was a birthday gift, and went to use it, there was nothing on it, I'm like.
Yeah.
So,
I
and we're
thought it was
scamming.
the person who bought it was
$0.
stupid or something.
They made tip cards for stuff like that.
Yes.
So like if you do wanna send a gift, they
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the major companies, like Starbucks does that, a lot of the major companies do it, where you can send a digital version of it, because that's less likely to be trapped. And if you want to send anything, you gotta be careful sending anything anyway, because the mail has been compromised recently. We have people stealing checks and rewriting them in their own name, increasing the amount by a couple zeros. And then they cash it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, they make another copy of the check, they take off one of the zeros and they try that. And then eventually it gets through and you lose your money. So they're every time I do one of these, I try to start by saying, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I didn't do that this time, but it is a terrifying place to live. So everywhere you go, you can be scammed, you can be defrauded, you can be injured. It sucks. But we can't allow that to affect us, because then the people win even more. So Social Security Administration, probably not as important for in here, but they're not gonna ask you for your social security number because they have it. Publishers Clearinghouse, that is a big one. If they didn't show up at your front door with the big check balloons and the camera crews, chances are you didn't win it, don't pay them anything.
That's still a thing.
Oh, it's huge, yeah. And again,
That's wild.
I don't understand. They were scammed, so they were put in a mindset where they won, and there was nothing they were gonna do to not win that 2020. It was actually a 2020 Mercedes-Benz car, and they paid $25,000 in taxes to get that car. Never got the car. Keeps asking me, I still haven't gotten my car. I don't know how to say it any differently. There's no car coming. It's not. Publishers Clearinghouse isn't selling you a 4-year-old car. It's not coming. You could buy it for $25,000. You don't need to pay $25,000 in tax. The car itself wasn't $25,000. There's no car coming. I'm very sorry. You lost your money. I can't help you. So it's frustrating. The McAfee antivirus, the thing that pops up on your screen saying, this subscription is, first of all, if it pops up on your screen and you never had it, it's a scam. If it pops up on your screen and you did have it, just go get it from the store if you want to renew it, or go to the website to renew it. Don't do it through any pop-ups. Sextortion has been huge. This one goes very underreported because people feel that there's something going on. So there'll be a pop-up on the phone that said, you've been looking at porn. We know you've been looking at porn. If you don't pay us, I'm going to release this to all your friends. Or we have these compromising images of you. And this happens all the time. If you
Two of our agents had that happen to them last week.
Yes, I have one of those cases, yeah. And it's compromising photos, we have them, we're gonna send them to your employers, we're gonna send them to your family, we're gonna send them to your husband, all these things. It's terrible, and they will send them, and.
Oh, they legitimately have them.
A lot of times, yeah. Now, with the one where the pop-up comes up and, we know what you've been looking at online, and it's, shouldn't look at child porn. If you're not looking at child porn, as it turns out, probably don't have to worry about it. If you're looking at child porn, you just go ahead and pay it forever, yeah. Pay it forever, stop, yes, stop first, but then pay all your money.
Forever.
Yeah. So it's one of those, you have to decide, am I doing this thing? If the answer is yes, if you pay them, they're gonna release it. If you don't pay them, they're gonna release it. So go ahead and try and inform your family, inform your employers, and let them know what's going on.
I think what's tricky with the McAfee one, and others like it, is we all have so many subscriptions that we forget about. And once upon a time, I probably did. And like the one that I've gotten a few times recently is, this has just been billed to your PayPal account. If this order was made in error, then please click here. I'm like, I know what the click here is.
Yes.
But it's like, I don't know, I've got subscriptions to so many different things. I've got things I've set up on automation, so it's plausible.
Yeah.
And it's like, I lose track of that stuff, did I? I don't know. And unfortunately, never fallen for it, because you can smell it, but at the same time.
They're good.
They're good.
They're very convincing, and that's why it's important, if you ever get those pop-ups or you get the phone call that says, or the text that says that your bank account's been compromised, you need to call this number. Don't call the number in the text. Go to the number on the back of your card, go to the website, go to the branch. There's no need for you to call whatever number they're providing. Go ahead and call the actual one. The grandparent scam we already covered, and then cryptocurrency scams, which we're gonna cover in a little bit. I am gonna start to speed up a little bit on these. This one may be something that you guys get calls about, I don't know. But it's a fraudulent tax scam, so the Stark County prosecutor put out this message about Stark County residents receiving reports that they were getting something from the tax processing unit of Stark County Public Judgment Records. That's not a real thing, but it was a very convincing letter, except for all of the errors. So if you look at it closely, you'll notice that there are errors, and that's one way to kind of weed it out. But again, there's proofreading, so like they could have no errors. Some of the newer frauds, this one, it has become big and it's all over social media. I don't think the video is gonna play, but if it does, that'd be great. Let's see. Nope. I'll just tell you what it is. So she got a little makeup brush, like a dollar store makeup brush, 50 cents or $1 for this little thing. But inside it, there was a QR code, and they said, learn more about this product, or if you didn't order this product, scan the QR code, whatever it is. Don't scan the QR code. So a QR code in and of itself is not malicious. However, if you scan a QR code that has malicious software attached to it, it will upload that onto whatever you scan it with and will give access to your entire phone, including anything you're logged into, your banking, your social media, all of that. So if you get a QR code and you don't know where it's coming from, just don't scan it. Or scan it at your own risk, I guess, but if, especially with these packages, this was a big thing, so. If you're at a restaurant and it's on the menu and it tells you like scan this for extra menu stuff, that's probably okay. If it's on a realtor sign, that's something that you use, like scan this for more information. But if it's a sign that you didn't put up and it has a QR code on there, don't scan it and get rid of that sign. The cryptocurrency frauds and scams, yeah.
So I do have a question more on the legality side of it, now that you're saying like that. I've been wanting to build I might be trying to do something illegal here on accident. I've been wanting to build a QR code that when they scan it, it just automatically fills out and sends the information as a lead. Is that illegal for me to do?
Not if you put a disclaimer on there, I would imagine. I hope you guys have some sort of legal advisors that you could ask officially about that, but if you have a disclaimer saying that by scanning this, it will fill out information and send a form, I think it'd probably be okay.
Okay, and the reason why is like, cause we like do events and shows, like, hey, instead of handwriting on a raffle form, I just wanna make sure we're not accidentally doing something illegal.
A lot of times, like I know with iPhones, you can send like your digital card can be sent, so that's pretty. I mean, I would imagine it's probably okay, but I would check with legal. I am certainly not an attorney, I cannot give you any.
I got you.
So the big one right now for cryptocurrency scams is pig butchering. With this, and I'm not gonna try and pronounce it, anybody speak Mandarin?
Shaju Pan. I know, but that's my best.
We're gonna go with it. You said it with such confidence, I accept that, yeah. So with this pig butchering, the scammer's gonna make contact with the victim. Usually it's through social media or a wrong text. I've gotten probably 15 wrong texts this month. It's hey, are you still coming out tonight? Or, hey, I was just wondering if you knew about Tina, whatever it is. It's something that prompts a response like, hey, you got the wrong number, I'm not coming out. And then they'll start a conversation with you. These can be months. So like they will build these relationships for 6 months. I've had up to a year. And then eventually they start to ask for the money. They'll say, hey, my uncle has this investment firm and he said, this is a really good investment in this cryptocurrency. Do you want to invest in it? He's seeing like 20, 30, 40, 50% returns. And then you put the money in and it's an account that they control. So they show you what the gains are. All of a sudden you get all these gains and they allow you to take the money out. They send it back to you. And then they say, see, that was good. A few weeks later, they say, hey, my uncle's got another one of these deals coming up, but this one's got a minimum of 100,000 instead of 1,000. Can you put that money in? They put that money in thinking, well, I just got my money back on that one. It's got to be real. They put their money in, gone forever. So it'll show that they got a bunch of money, then they say, you gotta pay tax to get that money out. You don't pay tax before you get the item, you pay tax after you get it. Uncle Sam will get their money.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that, but that's generally what ends up happening. So they also want to transfer you from talking through phone or social media to talking through the third-party apps like WhatsApp and Telegram, things that are encrypted and much more difficult for law enforcement.
Is that why? I've always wondered about the WhatsApp.
Yeah, we get that a lot.
Yeah. So WhatsApp is
Right
good
now.
for two things. It's good for criminals and it's good for overseas people to talk to people in the United States. So like I have friends in law enforcement all over the world and I talk to them through WhatsApp, and it's not because it's criminal. It is actually good for that. We can call on the phone. It's just, it's a secure way for us to have conversations. But it's also good for criminals because it's encrypted on both ends. Yeah. Signs to look out for: your new online friend wants to move the conversation to that private app or private messaging application. They are frequently messaging you, but they can never meet in person. They claim to be wealthy due to crypto or foreign currency trading. They encourage you to open that account and recommend trading on the website that accepts cryptocurrency. And they tell you to invest in crypto and send funds to their wallet or a particular platform. So you follow those, you make money quick, and then they take all your money. Other scams, everything else that there's a scam for, they can incorporate cryptocurrency into that. So you just have to be very careful with that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On these scams, do you see the teenagers getting like scammed by this type of stuff a lot?
So with teenagers, what we're seeing more is the romance and the sextortion. So it'll be a young boy that is told to send pictures to this girl. And he does, and then all of a sudden it's pay me $5,000 or I'm releasing these photos. That's what we see most. And then families get super scared. Romance scams are so they kind of fall under pig butchering as well. It's where they try to build a relationship with you. It could be through the wrong text, catfishing, things like that, where generally we see that it's in older population, widows or widowers.
Yeah.
And we see that they want to build that relationship with somebody. They talk online for a long time, and then they say, I need you to send me money so I can come over and see you. They never show up, but they keep sending money. And people, the firefighter with his pension, he's lost over $250,000 to a romance scam. Yeah, it's terrible. Yep, and he still believes that she's gonna come and see him. Yeah, it's sad. So some of the items that we need for the investigation. We want usernames, email addresses, phone numbers, and other identifying items, so get as much information as you can. The cryptocurrency addresses or QR code related to it, the exact amount of the transaction, date and time, and then the receipt if there was a crypto ATM used. This is what a cryptocurrency account would look like. So this is the QR code. If you scan that, it takes you to this address. Bitcoin starts with the same, like there's 3 different things that it starts with. BC1Q is one of them. So if you see that, it's a cryptocurrency account. All of them are gonna look similar to that though. They're not all gonna be the same letters, but they're all letters and numbers put together. And that creates a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency address. That QR code is something that we can scan and we can then trace it. I used to think, and I hated it, I would tell people if there was a cryptocurrency scam, there's nothing we can do, sorry for your luck. I didn't like giving that answer, so I started doing a lot of research. And just last month, we did the first seizure of cryptocurrency in Stark County, and then it turns out in this region of Ohio. So we were able to get the victim his money back. And everything is public record. It's all, there's an online ledger of every transaction with cryptocurrency, which I didn't realize because I was ignorant to it. And then I did a little bit of training, you can trace it. So it's not a huge percentage that we can get back, but we can at least give them an answer of where the money went. That's just a bigger image of the cryptocurrency address there. So I kind of flew through that, and I apologize, it's drinking through a fire hose, but what questions do you have?
Here's my thought for this group is.
Yeah.
The anti-fraud disclosure, so when we have transactions with clients, there's an anti-fraud disclosure, which basically our brokerage saying, hey, we're never gonna ask you for money, we encourage you to be as cautious as possible. And I feel like our training around this today is more of a like, hey, it's added awareness for our relationships with the clients, obviously for ourselves, but as we're setting things up, like, hey, this is a real thing, and I'm never gonna ask you for these things.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a discussion with my kids tonight.
So my nephews, we went through their phone, he had a TikTok account, and he was talking with people he thought were his friends. We said, where do you know this kid from?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I think he goes to one of the other schools. Jackson has 6 schools, so it makes it a little more difficult for him to know where he goes, but no, that's like a 35-year-old dude. It's not who you think you're talking to. Knock it off. He doesn't need to know where you live. He doesn't need to know your phone number. We have children that send pictures of themselves, pictures of their homes to people that they were meeting on Fortnite. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. But education and things like this, and I know this wasn't tailored as much to your profession as I probably could have made it, but it gets the word out there. You have an idea.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
And if you guys ever have any questions, you can call me. That's the office number. I can give you my other phone number. but-
I guess like kind of a related question. We have wholesalers in obviously our industry, but like. Some wholesalers are really sketchy and they're doing the whole elder abuse. I'm working with like an elder or a person that doesn't speak English and they're gonna buy this house. I don't know, I guess. Do you ever see anything with wholesalers? And if so, like, how do you approach it?
So by the time it gets to us, I don't know that we would know that it was a wholesaler, because that's a pretty quick process, right? They have to sign a contract and,
They, like wholesalers make extra commission basically, and then they switch the title over like right before closing
To
day.
somebody
So
else,
it's like a
right?
30-day process,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, by the time it gets, I haven't seen it. At least not as a wholesaler. I have had real estate fraud where somebody from overseas or another state is selling a house and the person pays a deposit and it goes to their account and then they never buy the house because the person doesn't own it. But I don't think it was specifically a wholesaler. But yeah, I used to do a little bit with real estate and I always was told that I should do wholesaling, and I never really understood the idea of assigning a contract within a certain amount of time and then hoping that you find a buyer. I mean, if you have a big book of buyers, but I imagine you get pretty desperate at some point and you'll do just about anything to get rid of that contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, interesting. We can keep an eye out now for that. Any other questions? I really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
We're all like,